D-Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, David Janes here with you on this Valentine's Day. We
Whoop,
love
whoop.
you. Well, maybe not all of you. Some of you are a little annoying, but we love most of
We
you.
still love you if you're
We all
annoying.
love
Yeah.
you. Just maybe some varying degrees of love. I may love some of you more than I love some others, but it's all love.
There we go.
It's just varying degrees of love.
Hmm.
So happy Valentine's Day to all of you. Gentlemen, I have some good news and I have some bad news. Let's
But
start
you
with
got some news.
I have some news. Let's start with the good news. The United States of America prevailed in its Four Nations face-off opener last night, winning 6-1, setting up must-see TV tomorrow night. USA and Canada at 7 o'clock in Montreal. It's going to be epic.
It is going to be epic.
It's going to be epic.
I can't wait to
That's
see
the
it.
good news.
Can't wait to watch it.
The U.S. wins 6-1. The bad news, UC Saros allowed 6 goals, and Finland 6-1 loss to the United States on Thursday evening. It was a good game through 2 periods. The U.S. had a 2-1 lead entering the third period. They scored 3 goals in the first 3 minutes of the third period to blow it open. UC Saros allowed 6 goals on 32 shots, 4 goals on 12 shots in the third period. So, look, this is red meat for the anti-Saros crowd. I am not going to argue that his performance last night, particularly in that third period, I'm not going to argue that it wasn't hard to watch. But yes, I know that because I've already talked to him today. Jared Stillman is rubbing his palms together. He's licking his lips.
I don't care.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
He's going to be how he's going to be. I've tried. That's all we can do.
I know. I understand.
I was
I'm not really
conflicted.
worried, but
Yeah.
it did get away from them last night. And UC Saros
was a part
was
of
a part of it, but I thought that mirrored a lot of games that I've seen this year for the Predators, where you have 3 things going on. A, being accountable for him. He's not playing at his best. There is no getting around that. If you are the most pro Saros person, you're not seeing that same guy who has been in the top 6 of the Cy Young, if you will, for goalies, the Vezina, for 4 straight years. He's not playing at that level. He's clearly shell-shocked. His confidence is down, and he is not elevating his team. The other 2 elements are important to keep in context. He had an inferior team in front of him, especially with the injuries to the defenseman for Finland. And through 2 periods, they were battling and staying in the game. But you could see that at any point, the explosiveness of the USA could come out. And it happened right at the beginning of the third period. And they broke. And then number 3, nobody scores goals when he's in the, he's in the net. They had 1 goal. So he has no margin for error. But last night was I felt for him last night because he went in already not on his A game. People could suspect it. People are asking about it, and he is playing right now, and he is one of these players. But this is the best hockey. This is why this is such a great event. This is the best hockey that we've seen in 10 years. Like, ask any player. These are the greatest players in the world outside of a few guys who play for other countries that aren't in this tournament. But
Brady Tkachuk, who had 2 goals last night, he and his brother were awesome last night. Matthew Tkachuk. Brady Tkachuk, who plays for the Senators, he's the captain of the Ottawa Senators, so he plays in the capital of Canada. Brady Tkachuk has never played in a Stanley Cup playoff game. The Senators have never made the playoffs with Brady Tkachuk on the roster. He said last night after the game that the game against Canada is going to be, this was his quote, the biggest game that I've ever played in my career. That's how seriously people are taking this tournament. Brady Tkachuk, the captain of a Canadian team who's never played in a playoff game in the NHL, the biggest game of his career on Saturday.
Drew Doughty, who's won 2 Stanley Cups and played in international competition before, who's from Team Canada, said the game against Sweden, the first game, was the fastest hockey that he's ever experienced. This is high level. So if you're off of your game, you're going to get exploited. Finland, 3 of their best 6 defensemen, including by far their best defenseman, not playing in this tournament. And you could see it. The Kachucks in particular, they're so good at bullying people in front of the net.
They were awesome last night.
They were really
good
good
to watch.
And you kind of, I was really hoping to see UC Saros shine and at least play well. I wasn't rooting for Finland necessarily, but I really was rooting for him to do well. But even after it was 2-1 at the end of the second period, Saros and the team, they were holding their own, but you just had the suspicion there's another level. The cream is rising to the top, like that tide's coming in. Sooner or later, it's going to break. And it broke. And look, Saros is in a slump. There's no question. I think they will probably turn to Lankinen in the next game. And that's going to sting Saros, who already goes in a little bit smarting. So this was not the recipe to get out of a slump. You were hoping it could be. Maybe throw him into the fire, playing for his country as the underdog. Maybe he'll shine. And it didn't happen. So this is just one of those things where I'm fully confident he will come out of this slump, but I can't deny it. He's in a slump.
If you get benched for Lankinen, I don't see how you come out of that slump. I just don't. As a player, I think your season is pretty much done.
I
Now,
think
mentally,
what Willie means, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Willie, that you're confident he will come out of this slump. This is not this season, but he'll shake off this season, play better.
no,
I think it could happen at any time, right? It's just like
this
Aaron
season,
Judge. Aaron Judge, the first month of the season was getting booed at Yankee Stadium and ended up being basically the unanimous MVP. And then the postseason,
did they pull him?
He did poorly, Aaron Judge, right? So the greatest players can have ups and downs.
But did Judge get pulled?
Judge?
Yeah, Judge. Did he get pulled from the lineup?
No, but it's different for an outfielder, right?
But you got to understand that,
like a pitcher who's in a slump, you have to take that pitcher.
Well, they're gonna rotate pitchers. I think pitchers understand it. They're gonna rotate.
And by the way, according to Tracy Myers, who works for NHL.com, who is in Montreal, says that Kevin Lankinen is indeed in the starter's net at Finland's practice. So I would expect Kevin Lankinen for Finland over UC Saros tomorrow against Sweden.
Well, if he get benched, I can't see him getting out of that slump. I just don't. It's just like a quarterback. If a quarterback's been playing bad the whole season, regardless of what's in front of him, and if the coach benches him and then say, okay, we'll put you back in the game, I don't know, 2 or 3 games later, there's a likelihood he's never coming back. The season's wrapped, because when you get benched like that and you've been the guy, and then it's not only that you get benched, but you got benched for the guy that they chose not to sign. That's even worse. So if it happens, you got to do some soul searching as a player before you get back here, because that's a big blow to your ego. I mean, a massive blow to your ego that you got benched for the guy that the Nashville Predators chose not to re-sign. And it's going to come up around here.
Oh, absolutely.
If that happens, it's going to come up.
But nobody was saying, I
get what you're saying.
There were some that said maybe a Lankinen, a Skarov in a long-term thing. I don't think anybody would argue that Lankinen is a better goalie than Saros over the long term. He's not, but he's playing better than Saros is right now. And right now, I think his confidence is better because he's had success this year, more so than Saros. And so Saros is going to have to go back to the drawing board and work through this. He probably, and Finland right now, after that loss, is probably up against it. They're going to have to win the next 2 games to be in the final. So they're probably looking, and they're such a big underdog. They're the biggest underdog by far. They're probably looking at 2 more games and then they're done. So Saros may not play again in these 2.
If
their third game is
he's
against,
definitely not playing.
Right. If Lankinen plays well against Sweden, they'll continue with him. And And then they play Canada in the third game, and they're going to be up against it in that one as well. Canada could easily score 4 to 6 goals in that game, regardless of who the goalie is. So all that to say, I think if you're Ben Vanderklok, if you're Mitch Korn, if you're Andrew Burnett and you're UC Saros, you're thinking, all right, what's our plan when Saros gets back to Nashville? How do we pick up the pieces here and get him back on track so that by the end of the year, he feels good about his game. You feel good about where he's going. Right now, there's no getting out of it. It's easy to pile on right now and say he's terrible. He'll come out of it. The question is, what's the process and how quick can it happen?
I'm not saying that he's terrible. I know that he still has game in him, but it just seems like this season is a wash.
Yes,
now.
I would agree with that.
So that's all I'm saying.
The optics of this situation are terrible for UC Saros. And I want to make this abundantly clear. Good thing this is being recorded, so if it gets cut and played later, I just want to make sure I have all of my words in order here. UC Saros has not been good this season. It's really hard to argue with that. There really is not much of an argument you can make, especially relative to how he's played throughout his career. The optics of this situation are not good for UC Saros. You hoped that he would play well in this tournament against top-of-the-line competition. The third period for him and Finland was a disaster yesterday. And now with the news that it appears that Kevin Lankinen, who backed up UC Saros for a couple of seasons, is taking over for him in this tournament. Again, the optics for UC Saros have been terrible this season. There's no arguing that. At the same time, I believe that UC Saros' Predators teammates should be sending him gift baskets and I love you cards on Valentine's Day, because a lot of them have been given a free pass this season because of how bad UC Saros has been. I decided to look this up this morning just for the sake of this argument. Philip Forsberg is on pace to score 16 fewer goals this season than he did last season. Have we really talked about how bad Philip Forsberg has been this season relative to last season? We haven't. Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault combined to score 82 goals last season. They both hit 40. I believe Marchessault had 42, Stamkos had 40. A combined 82. They are on pace to score a combined 50 this season. That is 32 fewer goals than they scored last season. Have we really talked about how bad Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault have been this season? I know that they had a run, in the middle of the season, but overall, they are way off their performance from last season. A lot of players on this team, this Predators team, have been given a free pass because of how poorly UC Saros has done. And adding to the poor optics, it's happening right after he signs an 8-year deal. The timing of all of this could not be worse for UC Saros. The reason why I'm not chasing him out of town right now is because I have seen him play enough high-quality goaltending to think that this could be a one-off, and that next season he'll get back on track to where we have seen him play before. Now, if this continues through next season, then we've got problems. But UC Saros has done himself no favors. But at the same time, there are a lot of players that wear Predators jerseys this season that should be thanking their lucky stars that UC Saros is taking all of the heat, because they've been bad too. We haven't even mentioned Brady Shea, who signed the longest contract in free agency, and he's been terrible. So I just want to make sure that people who are piling on UC Saros also start piling on everybody else, because UC Saros is part of the problem. He is not the only reason why the Predators are where they are this season. Far from it.
I agree. I think you could go down the list. I think, and maybe we'll do this on the air before they resume play, but if you give, and because we did this last season, give a report card, and I think we do it probably every season around this time, a report card of how you would grade each player. I actually think UC Saros, now that performance last night doesn't count against the Predators. No. And again, that was an avalanche
of a lot of different
things.
What's been going on.
And the last impression you have him going into the break in
Mhm.
Chicago, that was another absolute nightmare where his team quit. I have to tell you, that's one of the only games I think I've seen the Predators play in years where I just thought they didn't really care. They brought nothing to the table, and they broke down in front of him and said, Juice, you're on your own, man, whatever. They left him hanging out to dry. But what happens, just like a quarterback,
Mhm.
the goalie gets blamed more than an individual skater on the ice. I know as a father of a girl goalkeeper in soccer, that's always the hardest thing as a parent watching, because when the goal goes in, you're like, oh, could she have had that?
And
You
it
don't
seems
see
like,
the
yeah.
random 11 other people out there that there was a lot of different things that could have happened.
Mhm.
Especially the casual fan, they see the ball go in,
And
they
they
see the
just
puck
think,
go in, you're like,
oh,
oh,
yeah.
the goalie could have had that. So I'm with you, Adam. He hasn't had a good year, but that's what I've been saying all along. It's in the context of the entire team, each individual not having a good year. So I'm not as gloom and doom. I think he will pull out of this before the season is over. I really do think he will start playing much better. Because really, as you said, Adam, before you've pointed this out, it's really been about a month and a half of very inconsistent play. The first couple of months, he was much closer to the Vezina level that is his standard,
Mhm.
right? And I point that out. The bar is really high for him. 4 straight years of elite regular season play. He's as good as it gets when it comes to consistency, right up there with all of them. He's in about a month and a half slump right now that you can't deny. Maybe going on 2 months now, because we're talking about 2 weeks out of February, where I guess if you throw this international play in there, that will count. But I think his grade for the season is probably higher than some of the guys you mentioned on that list, Adam. So to cherry pick and only make it about Saros, that's very unfair.
He's a symptom of the problem, as Jared would say. And Jared should know more. He spews it and says it a lot, which at times it fits to what he's talking about. But I mean, UC is just a symptom of the problem, and they haven't been able to locate what the problem is. So it's just like anything. Sometimes quarterbacks and offensive, really quarterbacks get too much of the praise or they get too much of the blame. With a goalie, sometimes they get too much of the praise and sometimes they get too much of the blame. And as you sit right now, like you said, Adam, it's the optics of it all. You got this massive contract, and then it seems like upon getting that contract, you have what may end up being your worst season as a pro. Those don't look well together, but he's just a symptom of an actual problem, again, that they haven't been able to locate. And that's the concerning part, because Coach Bruno, we heard him say, we listened to the clip yesterday. He was trying to figure it out as he was talking. If you don't know exactly what the problem is, I mean, these guys are going to continue to be the symptom.
Look, we talked about Andrew Burnett yesterday and whether he's the right coach for this group. Emphasis on the word right, not is he a good coach? Is he the right coach for this group? I am not convinced of that. I am not convinced that he is the right coach for this group. And again, I am not trying to excuse the play of UC Saros. UC Saros has not been good this season. I am not arguing that. Last night did not help him at all. And I agree with Willie. The situation that the Finns found themselves in against the Americans, it was David versus Goliath in a lot of ways. But you would hope that UC Saros would have risen to the occasion, particularly in that third period. But the quick goals against were reminiscent of the quick goals against he gave up. Was that game 1 in Vancouver last year, where it was 2 goals in 15 seconds, 2 goals in 20 seconds, something like that. It was reminiscent of that. He has these patches sometimes where he gives up a lot of goals in a short span of time. It's not been good. This has been a bad year for UC Saros. My general point is that you have to look at the whole thing, and Philip Forsberg has 53 points in 54 games. He's nearly a point per game player. He hasn't been anywhere near as good as he was last season. Again, he's on pace to score 16 fewer goals this season than he did last season. Steven Stamkos looks his age. If not for a stretch of, what was it? 15, 16, 17, 18 games for Jonathan Marchessault. How many games did it take Jonathan Marchessault to record his first 5-on-5 point as a member of the Nashville Predators? 20? Roman Josi has not been good this season. Brady Shea has not been good this season. Gus Nyquist fell off a friggin' cliff. I'm just telling you.
Tommy Novak.
Well,
I mean, this is the thing. Go down the entire roster.
Yeah.
Tell me a Predator that's having a good year. It's really, you got to look really, you're getting down to role players. But the main guys that needed to shine, none of them are having a great year. Is Ryan O'Reilly having a pretty good, steady year? Yeah. Not as lights out as last year. There should have been, and I think they all realized that there probably was going to be some regression because some guys did have close to career years last year. But the collective drop-off has been huge up and down the lineup and not just in goal. So what I would say is, specifically with Saros, don't panic. I know he's got the long contract, but let's remember the contract is very reasonable with the new salary cap. He goes, I think he starts the year, at ninth highest paid goalie in the league?
Thereabouts in terms of cap hit.
So it's not like he's
10th.
taking up huge cap space. That's a very reasonable contract that he signed. I'm not worried about that. Any 8-year contract, the last couple of years, I don't care what player you're talking about. The last couple of years of an 8-year contract, you're going to say, well, what's that going to look like? That's standard practice. So I'm not worried about the contract. I want to see how he gets his game, his confidence back. I think it is a mental thing. I don't think he's, quote, lost a step or anything like that. Mm-hmm. He's just off with his mechanics, and it's tied to his confidence right now. And if you're a little bit off in this game, especially with the worst goal support in the league, mm-hmm. and a bottom 10 defense, that spells trouble, right? And so to get out of it is difficult.
If your long game is on and your putting is off, it's going to be a long day.
615-737-1025. We have a lot of reaction. We will get to that next. 615-737-1025. The Game Nashville Sports Network is your home for NASCAR. 94.9 The Fan will have live coverage of the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race fresh from Florida 250 tonight at 6. Tomorrow, catch the NASCAR Xfinity Series race United Rentals 300 starting at 3:30.
All right, let's talk F&M Bank. We are going to take it to the bank today at 145. And yes, when you hear my score, it will be something 0.25. 0.25.
You're welcome.
And so that is what I'm hoping I can win this contest with. But F&M Bank, speaking of numbers, rounding them up. I wish I could get that 0.25 rounded up to the nearest dollar, but that's what the Smart Swipe card does at F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. One of the tools that they have is the Smart Swipe card. Looking for a simple way to save money over time? Every time you use your F&M Bank Smart Swipe debit card, it rounds up to the nearest dollar. So if you make a purchase of $11.25, they will round it up and put that extra 75 cents in your savings account. And over time, you are going to build up money in that account. Great way to save money without even putting a lot of thought into it. That's the principle behind banking made easy on purpose. We'll take it to the bank at 145. Tell them you heard about the Smart Swipe card here on 102.5 The Game from me. It's F&M Bank. Go to myfmbank.com for the nearest location. Member FDIC.
D. Mace, Finken, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, talking Four Nations face-off. UC Saros, a rough night for the Finns last night, allowed 6 goals. The Americans win 6-1, which is good. We're all Americans. U.S. and Canada tomorrow, must-see TV. Let's get to your phone, 615-737-1025. Bruce is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Bruce, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, guys, I got a lot of thoughts on this team, so I'll try to make it as quick as possible. But I think it all starts with Barry Trotz, honestly. You look at some of the contracts he's given out and some of the guys he's traded and let walk, and I don't think any of it looks very good. Like, he let Kiefer Sherwood walk, and he's having a great year in Vancouver. The Novak contract, I don't think that looks great at all right now. The Tomasino trade was bad. You would love a fourth line right now of Tomasino, Sherwood, and another younger guy up from Milwaukee. That'd be nice. He extended Cole Smith and Michael McCarron. I don't think that was the right move. You saw it in the Chicago game. Feels like every other game, one of those guys has taken a penalty 200 feet from their own net. So it's none of these moves that Trotz has made. They don't look like they're working out very much. Like, the Brady Shea contract is bad. Burnett, it does not seem like the right coach for this team at all. And I think at a certain point, if you spend $114 million in the offseason, you got to let the coach go with these kind of results and see if you can get something, any kind of momentum going for next year.
Hey,
So
Bruce, Bruce, hang
Yes.
with me for a second, because I'm with you. There's no question that the magic touch that Barry Trotz had early on, where it seemed like everything that he made, every move that he made, fell right into place. It's gone the opposite this way. He has not. But I think we overestimate the value of a Kiefer Sherwood and a Phil Tomasino. Can you tell me off the top of your head, what is Phil Tomasino's stat line right now for Pittsburgh?
He has around 12 goals. It's somewhere around 10, isn't it?
Nope.
7?
7 goals, 5 assists for Pittsburgh in 28 games. So is that really why the Predators are losing? They moved on from Phil Tomasino?
No, I don't think it's the reason they're losing. I'm just saying it would be nicer to have a fourth line of Kiefer Sherwood, Tomasino, at least some in today's NHL, like guys like McCarron and Cole Smith. Like, I hate to say it, but they don't really have much of a place on a NHL roster anymore. You'd rather see younger guys you could do something with. And I know this wasn't a Trotz move, but a third or fourth line of Colvin and Tomasino Sherwood would be fun to see right now, at least.
Well, Sherwood.
Thanks for the call, Bruce.
Sherwood has had a nice year. I give you that, and his speed is definitely been missing. But the Predators had a budget issue. He got a little bit more than the Predators were willing to offer, and he took it. But I still would say, if they had Kiefer Sherwood and he was having that year, would they be in the playoff position? These are the secondary players that we're talking about, for the most part, fringe roster players, and not needle movers. The needle movers are the ones that have not, and you went right down the list. Who has to play well for them to be good? Forsberg, Josi, Saros, O'Reilly,
Stamkos.
Nyquist, Stamkos, Marchessault, Shea. Those are the go to the payroll, and who have they invested in? And I used to say this all the time with Johansson and Duchesne, right? If you're not getting that from your team is in trouble. So I think we can nitpick about Tomasino and Parsonen and Sherwood, but that's not the answer.
Cam is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Cam, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Good morning, fellas.
Hello.
Morning.
So, just real quick, as ugly as that third period was, there was also 2 pucks that literally bounced off the top post, and so obviously they got behind Saros, and it could have looked even worse. But I got a couple questions for you, real quick, Willie. Is his contract? Does he have a no trade clause with the Predators?
He does Is it a full no trade, Adam? I know it kicks in when the new contract starts, which would be
Cam, if your
in
question
July.
is if the Predators can move off of UC Saros now, technically the answer is yes, because he's under his last contract, not the contract that
Yeah.
he signed over the summer. That contract doesn't have any trade protection. So if the Predators theoretically wanted to trade him, they could, but I don't think that's going to be happening.
So are you saying they should trade him, Cam?
Right. No, well, okay, so here's my next question, Willie. And I know you're an optimist, and I listen to everything you say because you're with the Predators more than anybody with the station. But what if Juice just doesn't bounce back? I mean, it does happen. Some players just lose that like you said, it's a mental thing, and they just don't bounce back from it. So then what do you do? Thanks. I'll hang up and listen.
Thanks, Cam.
Okay, but let's look at your choices, all right? Because I know Jared made this argument.
And before you answer, UC Saros has a no movement clause in 6 of the 8 years of his contract. I'm sorry, let me rephrase. He has a no movement, yes, through years 1 through 6. He has a no movement clause, which means he has the right to say no to anything. In the final 2 years of his contract, he has a no movement clause with a modified no trade clause. This is where it gets kind of complicated. In that situation, the no movement clause protects him from being waived. So he has a modified no trade clause. So the Predators could trade him to a certain number of teams near the end of his deal. But through the first 6 years of his contract, he has complete and total authority on his situation.
All of that, we know, let's take for a certainty that he has a lot of protection. It won't be easy to trade UC Saros starting July, whatever, when this new contract kicks in. So let's look at your options. Jared, I know, made the case, hey, let's just cut bait right now. Let's trade him. So what would you get for UC Saros right now? His stock is down, right? So you're not going to get a good return on a trade. If you just desperately start calling around all the teams that called you last year and made offers, you know that trade market. You know what it was last year when his stock was better. And you didn't like what you saw. So you traded. So you signed him to a new deal, which is a reasonable deal in terms of what the goalie market has done and where the salary cap is going. So you're not going to get anything back in a trade that you like. You're going to get pennies on the dollar. So are you going to do that, or are you going to bet on a recovery for a guy that has finished consistently in the top 6, the 6 best goalies in the league for 4 straight years, which, by the way, are the only 4 years that he's been the starter? So what are the odds? Are the odds better that he bounces back, or that he completely falls off a cliff? Anything can happen, right? We're not certain of anything. He could go out and have all kinds of issues or get hurt or something and not be the goalie. But you have to make everything has a risk to it.
Mm-hmm.
I know UC Saros. I know he's going to work harder than anybody. And my money is on him bouncing back over the long term. I can't sit here and tell you he's going to light it up as soon as he comes back in there a week from Saturday against Colorado. I can't guarantee you that. He's in a slump. I don't know when the slump's going to end. But over the long term, I think he is a very good bet.
But
more so than, hey, let me get a first-round pick or a second-round pick and just cut my losses. Let's get rid of him right now.
But it may not. Again, he's a symptom of a problem. And
the bigger problem is
exactly.
the team. Yeah.
But if the style of play, and this is where we sort of get into Bruno now, if the style of play doesn't fit your goalie, then maybe you need to change the style of play. Because right now it doesn't. The style of play that they're employing doesn't fit UC Saros because they're not playing good defense in front of them. And they just started scoring goals. So if that philosophy or that version of hockey doesn't work, then you gotta change it in sake of potentially putting your goalie even deeper into this sort of mental funk that he's in.
615-737-1025. If you have any stray thoughts on this, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, though, there is a quarterback out there who is now available on the market
Okay, can I give one closing thought on Saros before we move
Yes.
to the pigskin?
Yes.
Or is it still pigskin, or is it more of a
It's pigskin.
synthetic substance now?
We're
Is
gonna
it
call
true?
it pigskin.
No.
Or just skin.
Figurative.
Period. Yeah.
One more comment on vulcanized rubber, real
Sure.
quick. But here's the other part of the equation. Hey, maybe they should trade Saros. So who's your goalie? Who's your goalie?
The argument would be, well, I can just go find someone that's like Kevin Lankinen who can give me these numbers
Okay,
for
so-
a fraction of the cost.
Who?
I don't know the list of goalies that are
Okay,
out there.
that's
I would
what
have
I'm
to
saying.
look that up.
But say people who make that argument, you don't have a plan for who that is. My contention is that in front of this team this year, you would see a big drop off of you can't just throw anybody in there with the challenges that this team has. And so again, he'll bounce back. He's a good goalie. He's not playing his best. But if you think that Jussi Saarinen or just Joe goalie who can get off the street would do better, I got a problem with that.
Joe Goalie sounds American? Joe Goalie?
Joe goalie,
Yeah.
Joe, is it Joe Goalie?
Wally,
Is
Wally,
it Joe Goalie or
Wally.
Joe
Is
Goalie?
Is he Jose Goalie? It could be French Canadian. 615-737-1025. There is a quarterback out there who's now available. Is he too toxic to touch? We'll discuss that next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, the game.
All right, let's talk League Company. Remember, League Company sponsors our Predators coverage here on 1025 The Game. Nashville plays again a week from tomorrow when they resume the season as we enjoy the Four Nations face-off. USA versus Canada, by the way, tomorrow night is a must-watch. In Montreal, that is going to be awesome. Even if you're not a hockey fan, just flip it on and watch the intensity and the talent. Best players in the world head-to-head. Two best teams in the world going head-to-head. Now, let's talk League Company. 615-567-1000 or leaguecompany.com. They do a fantastic job keeping your house running properly the way it should. So if you have a problem with your heater in these last several weeks of cold weather, by all means, keep that number top of line. 615-567-1000 or make an online appointment at leaguecompany.com. And if you want to get ahead of the game, get that air conditioning unit checked before the weather gets hot. Be proactive. Get it checked. Hadn't had it checked the last couple of years. I get it. It happens. It's not the most favorite thing you can do. You don't wake up every day saying, hey, I should get my air conditioning checked. But this is why staying ahead of it can save you money. Call 567-1000, area code 615. Get it checked. You'll be happy. In July and August, you'll say, hey, I'm really glad I did that. League Company, proud sponsor, Nashville Predators, in business since 1944.
The great Whitney Houston. We will always love you.
Was that a request?
Can't
there?
nobody hit a note like
No.
that. There's two people nobody can never hit a note like. She's one and Luther Vandross is the other. Whew. Man.
I can't argue.
Woo-hoo-hoo. Whitney.
Goosebumps.
Happy Valentine's
Happy
Day.
Valentine's Day, everybody. As I said, it's all love here. There are varying degrees of love. I love some of you more than I love others, but it's all love. You're just tiered on the love chart. So, speaking of love and breakups and things of that nature, it was made official yesterday that the New York Jets are dumping Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers seems like the kind of guy that would say, I'm not dumping you. I mean, you're not dumping me. I'm dumping you. He feels like that kind of guy.
Mutually parting ways.
Right. I don't know how mutual it actually was, but
Yeah.
he is no longer a member. Well, I think technically he is right now, but he will soon be cut by the New York Jets. And Willie, you asked an interesting question to us today, which we will get to. But I thought Ryan Clark on ESPN cut to the heart of the matter. Heart, Valentine's Day. This was what Ryan Clark had to say about Aaron Rodgers. That was Ryan Clark on ESPN. And when we've talked about these quarterbacks, Willie, I think Aaron Rodgers was lumped into this as well, but I've heard it with Matthew Stafford in the Rams, and I've heard it with Derek Carr in the Saints. And by the way, Kellen Moore, incredibly non-committal about Derek Carr yesterday during his introductory news conference, which we can talk about, if not today, definitely next week. The question is, well, if Matthew Stafford isn't playing for the Rams, who's their quarterback going to be? And that's a question I felt like you could probably ask of the New York Jets, right? Well, if Aaron Rodgers isn't starting for the Jets, who are they going to have as their starting quarterback? Clearly, the Jets figured that they could find someone because they decided to let go of Aaron Rodgers. But you cut to the heart of the matter yourself when we were talking about this before the show.
Well, my question to you guys, I tried to look at it from the Jets' perspective today. As I was reading the coverage, I was reading The Athletic, but I'm sure there's all around New York, everybody's giving their opinion on this decision by the Jets, but I don't see a lot of, hey, what a terrible move. Why are they cutting Aaron Rodgers? They seem pretty sure, and the pushback isn't that big from the media. But as I look at it, A, he's going to be 41. B, they are going to have to pay him significant money not to play for them. And they still have made this decision knowing the shaky group of guys that are out there to replace him. So that does have me kind of pause and say, is this really what the Titans want to look at? What do the Jets know? Now, you could just sit there and say, maybe the Jets are just that dumb.
Which is
this
possible.
smart.
Which is possible.
Because their track record isn't good.
Yes.
Even though they've got any number of coaches and any number of GMs that have been in this position, and they're trying a new group now. This is new. This is how they see it. Maybe they just want to start over. But the Jets know they're not going to bring in Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is not going to the Jets. We don't even know Sam Darnold will be on the market for sure, right? We can't know that right now. So I also, as I looked at that, say, hey, look, the Jets, even though they know the landscape is barren, they still feel they need to make this move. So that tells me they are absolutely done. There was no hope in their mind. They think that Aaron Rodgers is done. And then the other part of it is they pick 7th. So if you're going to be done and you know the other quarterbacks, if you're going to keep a veteran quarterback, aren't you better off keeping Rodgers than going into a Daniel Jones or a Mac Jones or a Mitch Trubisky type kind of guy? Or are they thinking, hey, new coach, new gentleman, let's draft the next guy? So that makes me think, are the Jets the team that are really now, I don't want to say committed to, but really in the game of let's trade up to get one of these two guys. We need a fresh start. We want a young guy. He's cheaper. We got to pay this dead money anyway. So let's go with the budget and let's go with the hope that the first pick, because they're going to have to get up to one or two, right, to pick one of the two guys, possibly. Because the consensus is sitting at 7 isn't going to get it done. They're probably going to have to move up to get a quarterback, right?
Yeah, if they move up possibly 2 slots to 5, I think they would have a chance to get the quarterback.
So why not just move up to 1?
Yeah, because they're not going to want to give away as much. It all depends on how, because it's not like they need to make the trades now. As they see the maneuvering teams are doing, if the Titans choose to move out of that first spot, then they may think, oh, man, we need to move up to 2 or 3 right now because somebody may jump to that second spot or try to jump to that second or third spot to try to get the guy we want. So I think this. I don't look at it in regards to, the Jets. It must be something wrong with Aaron Rodgers because the Jets of all teams chose to go away from him. No, I think listen, if you're hiring me as a coach and this is my first opportunity, and sometimes this may be my last opportunity to be a head coach, I don't want to do it with a guy that it hasn't worked out the previous 2 seasons. I don't want to do it to guy. If he was coming off back-to-back seasons where, he led a team to the playoffs, maybe they didn't get to the Super Bowl, but he led a team to the playoffs, and he looked closer to the Aaron Rodgers that, from 2 or 3 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, then okay, we can have that conversation with keeping him in. But he was not that. Now, even though he wasn't the old Aaron Rodgers, what people fail to realize is that the Aaron Rodgers that we once knew was from a physical standpoint, the things he could do with the football was better than anybody. When he takes a step back, that doesn't mean now all of a sudden he's a trash quarterback. That just means instead of being number 1, now you're number 11. And that's still damn good. So, but I think New York just wanted to go away from him. They just wanted to recoup some of that money, start off with a clean slate, with a new coach, new GM, and let's do it our way. So I don't look at necessarily what the Jets did and say, you know what, I don't want to touch Rodgers. Well, no, it's what do I need? Right. What am I? What situation am I in?
But you do have to ask yourself, okay, you're the new coach, so who's my quarterback, right? So they had.
But if it hasn't worked out for the last 2 years, right, you're not going to stick with it.
Okay, but I get that. It's like it's a little bit related to our Saros discussion when people say, "Oh, it's time to trade Saros. It's time to trade him." But who is then going to be your goalie plan going forward? I need to know that, right? And so when they go through the list, I'm looking at this article in the Athletic. So they've made the decision. They're parting ways with Rodgers, but they had the bird in hand. The option was to stay there, but they think these other options are better. Tyrod Taylor and Jordan Travis on the roster right now.
Jordan Travis didn't play last year.
Right, he's injured.
4th round pick somewhere around
and we
there.
still don't know when he's going to be ready to play. He's a 5th round pick. Florida State.
Tyrod Taylor is roughly
35
years old.
35.
I was off
but
by a few hundred years.
He's
but
been
maybe
around.
they have a plan already. But like
we
they're
mentioned
not looking at
Sam
those
Darnold.
guys.
Sam Darnold is not going back to the Jets. There's no way
I
he's
can't
doing
imagine that happening.
Justin Fields, is that where you go? Okay,
that could be a possibility.
Maybe. Russell Wilson?
Jameis
Winston? I mean, it's the same list that we've been talking about with the Titans.
Yes, they're having the same conversations we are.
But they've made the decision of either drafting a guy or going down this list. They've made the decision that person is better than Aaron Rodgers.
If I'm going to take
even
a
though
job,
they're paying a ton of money for Aaron Rodgers,
but
to start
if I'm going to take a job, I don't want to be pigeonholed by somebody else's contract. So we're going to allow him to move. And if in my thought process, it's like I'm going to get more time to figure this out with a new quarterback than I would with an Aaron Rodgers. Because if it doesn't work for the 3rd year in a row and it's bad, they're going to be looking to get rid of me and him. So no, I don't want no part of the last coaching regime's quarterback. That's what got Brian Callahan in this situation that he's in.
615-737.
But it's just a musical chairs
Yeah.
thing. It just is
Yes.
amusing to look at.
615
One man's trash is another man's trash. That's another.
Yeah.
It's on Macklemore, right? The thrift shop.
Thrift shop.
Yeah.
That's hipper than I thought you.
Oh,
there
well,
you
you're
go.
bringing them out.
Yes.
The love in the air.
615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on the Titans quarterback situation and Aaron Rodgers. 615-737-1025. The Game Nashville Sports Network is your home for NASCAR racing. Sunday, tune in for the Daytona 500 on Sports Talk 830 at 1230 and on 1025 The Game following the Vanderbilt baseball game. Coverage of the Daytona 500 presented by Green Trees and the newcumberland.com. D. Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Bingen here with you, talking Titans quarterbacks, specifically Aaron Rodgers. And during the break, gentlemen, I was trying to think of a way to describe the quarterback situation that the Titans and other teams find themselves in. And it's Valentine's Day, so let's use this as an example. It's Valentine's Day. You're single. You go to a bar, right? You're hoping to meet someone nice, have a nice Valentine's Day. You walk in there, you look at the situation, you scope it out. You see a beautiful woman, blonde or brunette, if you prefer brunettes. She's the Joe Burrow of women. She's just a 10 out of 10. And you muster up the strength. I'm going to say hi to her. I'm going to go over there. And then as you start making that first step, her boyfriend comes out of the bathroom, puts his arm around her, gives her a big old smooch. And you're like, nope, she's not available. She's not available. She's out of my league. And then you kind of look around and there you see the Lamar Jackson of women and the Patrick Mahomes and the Josh Allen. And they're all taken. They're unavailable. And then it's the end of the night and it's last call. And you're still there. And you're just thinking to yourself, man, I don't want to go home alone. And then over in the corner by the jukebox. Do they still have jukeboxes now?
They do.
Over by the
Some places.
Sure, somewhere.
Over by the jukebox.
I think in Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yes. Over at the jukebox, you see the Justin Fields of women. She's fine. She's there. She's available. And you just, you're like, all right, fine. Then you go up to her and maybe you make a night of it. That's kind of the situation.
Make a night of it. Yeah, okay. That could go a lot of different ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's kind of the situation that the Titans find themselves in. And then there's Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers, he's the woman at the bar who's loud and yelling
She's a sig.
yelling at the bartender because
Been around the track a few times.
right, she's at the bar yelling at the bartender for
She's
not
still
getting
nice
the drink
looking,
fast enough.
but it's like,
She's a
too many
good-looking
problems.
woman, but you
She
can
looks
tell.
good in the
You
dark.
can
That's
tell.
all you need to know.
You can tell looking at this woman, man. She's got some real baggage. She's hot, but she's got some real baggage. That kind of diminishes the hotness. That's kind of where we are with Aaron Rodgers. Dylan
Experienced.
is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Dylan, I'm sorry that you have to follow this up. Please go ahead.
Hey guys, how you doing today?
Good.
Doing well.
Hey, so I have a question. So from the point of view of Brian Callahan, if you're Brian Callahan, aren't you trying to advocate to get Aaron Rodgers, even though he isn't the best? Your goal for next season is to demonstrate that you can be a head coach and that your offensive plan works in order to try and keep your job. So don't you need like a veteran to come in there and demonstrate that, whether he's not the same anymore, he's decent now, versus overreaching for a rookie this year, and then you're trying to like advocate to Amy like, hey, I need at least 2 to 3 years with this quarterback. He's a rookie. The first year is going to be rough. And I don't know if she's going to give him that time basically to be with that quarterback. And then you don't want to leave the rookie quarterback with now 2 head coaches, if Callahan gets fired. So if you're Callahan, aren't you trying to advocate for a veteran just to demonstrate that your offense is good? You just need a good quarterback to go along with it. And I just want to see what you guys think.
Thanks for the call, Dylan. That's a big question in all of this, for sure.
I do believe that, and see, it's hard for, I guess, Borgonzi and Brinker. Borgonzi coming from Cincinnati, from Kansas City. I think he probably look at offenses probably a different way because you got the great Andy Reid and then Patrick Mahomes quarterbacking it. But I don't think either one of them can come into a situation and says, well, Brian's system doesn't work. I think they showed enough that the system works. Listen, Mason Rudolph, he wasn't great, but Mason Rudolph showed you that if you have competent quarterback play, the offense can run efficiently. He just couldn't push the ball down the field. He didn't scare anybody, but he ran the offense the way that we could sort of, okay, I can get a glimpse of what this offense could be if they had a quarterback there. So I don't think it's necessarily, I got to show that this offense works. I think for him, he just has to show team improvement. And how do you do that? Well, you can do it one or two different ways. You could take the young quarterback, allow him to develop, but that means you better hit on either some free agents or your other draft picks, because they're going to have to sort of hold the boat up for a bit before it gets going. You can do it that way, or you can go out and get a veteran guy and say, listen, if y'all want me to win now, I got to have that guy. I have to.
Yeah.
Because that would be saving his job.
That's such a tough question, and it's not an easy position to be in if you're Callahan, especially if your calling card is supposed to be offensive guru, right? Offensive mind. So I think the communication is going to be very important, and I think Callahan has got to be saying, look, if you guys, I know the roster like you guys know the roster. We all can agree that there are a lot of holes here we've got to fill. If our strategy is to get a lot of picks and try to fill holes and punt on the quarterback thing for a year and maybe just take a flyer, experiment, see what we've got, I'm all in with that. But I'll make the most of it, but I need to know that. And you guys need to know that I would like to have a little security to understand that it may not happen this year. We might be playing really for 2 years. And so how does that affect me as the head coach? Like, I think, to be fair to him, I would hope that Borgonzi and Brinker would say, okay, we get that. Do the best you can. We're not going to give you the great tools of a great quarterback this year. It's just that guy's just not out there right now. And we understand that. We will work that into our evaluation of you.
But that's the question that I asked Tim, earlier in the week. Like, if you are a head coach or if you're a GM, are you doing what's best for the head coach at the moment? Or are you going to do what's best for the organization as they move forward?
What should the answer be? It should be the organization as a whole,
yeah,
right?
But maybe the organization as a whole doesn't, or the head coach doesn't agree with the organization as a whole, because he may not see that. And unless he wins now, he may not see the bigger picture.
He's probably looking
exactly.
Does the back of my shirt have a sign that says scapegoat on it? Exactly. Did you guys pin that on me?
And that's essentially, he understands now.
Can somebody can you just take a look and see? Does that say scapegoat on there, that sign?
And I'm sure it probably would be on the back. But I think Brian Callahan understands that. Hey, listen, this is a critical year for me. I need to show development. They haven't said, at least publicly, what development looks like. But they said he's going to be held accountable. That's what they did say. So how does both of those look? Is developing or showing progress winning 6 games? I don't know, because they hadn't said it yet. Or is it just a roster getting better?
Yeah. Is it wins, or is it much more?
Exactly.
Is the roster moving forward?
So which one is it?
Progress? These are,
and maybe they've told him what it is.
This is why communication and the plan, the organization structure is important. The communication lines.
Here is what Dan Graziano of ESPN had to say. We played Ryan Clark earlier. Here's what Dan Graziano of ESPN had to say about Aaron Rodgers.
Second one, and he hasn't been. If I'm a team, I'm looking at my quarterback options, and somebody says, Aaron Rodgers, okay, how'd that go with the Jets? Well, they won 6 games in 2 years. He missed a year because of injury. He played hurt another year. Everybody got fired. Now he's 41. We signing up for that? I'm not.
That was Dan Graziano of ESPN talking about the Aaron Rodgers situation.
But see, Dan Graziano, he's not in that position. And we all can say go get him or not get him. But listen, when the regime changes and you are the lone person that is left back, as from the last regime, you were just a carryover from the last regime. Your job is automatically, especially if, everybody really got fired because of how the season went and how the roster looked. You coming into that season knowing you are going to be next if it doesn't work out. because they're not going to fire the whatever Brinker's title is, president of almighty, king of all football,
Supreme leader of football.
leader of
The
football,
supreme ruler of football.
Oh, ruler.
or Bogdanzi. So they're not getting rid of those two guys.
Can't forget the rule.
So the only guy that's left is you and your coaching staff. So I got to do what I need to do to make sure that we go out there and we put together wins, because the pecking order was coach, GM, and now it's going to be coach again. That's the way this thing has sort of been going. So he has to get it right. But what does right look like?
This is the dilemma,
Yeah.
right? It goes back to Adam's reference of the landscape of the bar on Valentine's Day.
Not
If you
that I
had a-
haven't-
I'll
I'll
give
if
you-
you
I'll
had
give
a
you
bar on
that.
Valentine's Day, then
Well,
man, that's bad.
right.
But the Titans are kind of the Titans.
That's kind of they are.
and
They
the
don't
Browns-
really
Yeah.
have.
The Titans, the Browns,
They don't really
and the
have a
Jets,
Valentine.
and the
Yeah.
Giants are in this situation. The
They don't-
Giants, if I'm not mistaken, do not have any quarterbacks under contract for
Not,
next season.
not one.
So so I think the Giants
They have nobody.
absolutely have
don't
to
even have
go
Tyrod
to the
Taylor.
bar. Yeah, right.
They
And
had
he-
Tyrod Taylor
Yeah.
not too long ago.
but he's across the street.
He's
now.
across the street.
So
Well, here's another analogy. This is, you tell me if this was true in your college days. And I've already had this discussion with my son, who's a freshman,
Yeah.
and his buddies, right? It's always, why, there's just not that many good looking girls on our campus. I wish I went to X college across the street.
Everybody-
Their girls are so much better looking, right?
Oh man.
Like I've heard this so many times and I was no different when I was. I'm sitting with my Vanderbilt freshmen, going, "Hey, the girls at Vanderbilt, they're just not that good looking. I wish we went to Alabama or Ole Miss. That's where all the
They're all mid.
that's where all the good looking girls are, right? And meanwhile,
They got
the
stuff
freshmen,
over there.
the freshmen at Auburn or at Alabama go, man, our girls are just not that good. I wish we went to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's got all the good looking. It's always the grass is greener, right? But that is when you don't have the quarterback.
Yeah.
You have to look, and you may not be impressed with any of the options. You have to find the right option. You have to go with what's there.
Yeah, you do. I mean, in essence, yes, you do have to go with what's there. And listen, there may be some changes in, Sam Darnold may not sign back with Minnesota. There may be other quarterbacks out there that sort of, Derek Carr might end up on, in a situation where he's no longer in New Orleans. So I think it all depends on what you're looking for. That's because we got to understand, if you're looking for a Patrick Mahomes, those top tier guys, you might as well not even look, because they're not out there. If you're looking for somebody that's going to jumpstart you and get you to the AFC and NFC championship game because of their play, they're not out there. They're not. They're not. But if you're looking for a guy that you can add to some pieces, and you figure if we just get some good quarterback play out of him with the team around him, maybe that can elevate us
Right.
to getting into the playoffs, and maybe
And it's not a long-term
Exactly.
commitment, and it's maybe reasonably priced.
Exactly.
These are all the things you consider.
absolutely. So I think you got to go in thinking with that mindset, and not the mindset of, I need a quarterback that's going to get me to the championship game, because neither one of these quarterbacks that are out there will do that, or at least they haven't done that other than Aaron Rodgers.
Set the bar low, like Adam at the jukebox.
Yeah, I guess so.
what are you talking about?
Well,
I
you
didn't go to
painted the
bars.
pictures.
I wasn't cool enough to even go to the
Well,
bar.
just
you're
had a
the one
juice
that painted
box.
that beautiful
Yeah,
picture of
you
us at
painted
the
picture at the
jukebox.
jukebox.
I mean, I did go to journalism school, so I am good at writing and setting scenes. I didn't say it was
so who was
realistic.
at the
You didn't put
jukebox?
yourself in the scene.
So who was at the jukebox?
Yeah, who was at the jukebox?
Yeah,
The cooler versions of me in college.
it's like Urkel and Stefan. So Adam and David. Or
Oh,
Durrell. Adam Durrell. There you go.
Yeah.
That's your alter ego, Durrell.
Durrell?
Adam and Allen.
No, it's too close. See, you had a Urkel and Stefan. Different. You got an Adam and a Durrell, or a
Why Daryl?
or a Brad.
Brad's better.
Brad.
All right. I'll go with Brad as my suave alter ego.
or Saggio. Well, we got a Saggio around here, so we can't say Saggio.
Who's Saggio?
Matt Saggio from our
Oh,
department.
that's yes, of course.
He's got,
so we got a Saggio.
he's got
He
dibs
got
on
the
that
cool
name.
name, yeah. So we can't use his name.
We'll go with Fabio.
Yeah, Fabio. There we go.
Fabio.
No, that's too cool.
That is too cool.
That conjures up a whole
All
nother
right.
image.
If you have ideas for what my cool Stefan Urkel alter ego, you could text us. But the question with Aaron Rodgers is as well. There was a report earlier this week from Diana Rossini that as part of the conversation that the Jets had with Rodgers before making the decision to move on from him, he had to show up for all practices and he could no longer appear on the Pat McAfee show during the season. Is Aaron Rodgers at a place in his career where maybe he's humble enough to say, you know what? I had some bad seasons in New York. I didn't live up to my end of the bargain. If the Titans are another team, has the same guidelines for me, I realize where I am in my career, I don't have much room to argue. Like, do you think Rodgers, I mean, I'm almost snickering to myself as I ask this question. Do you think Rodgers is able to humble himself enough to accept that his place in the world, where he can't be the supreme ruler of football as he seemed to be with the Jets, that's no longer an option?
I would tend to say yes, because of, again, I go back to him, the leverage is not there anymore. And I think sometimes that will humble you as you look at the landscape and figure like, man, I gotta humble myself. But to the whole OTA thing, they can't do it. Legally, they can't do it. Because the NFLPA will have a field day.
But he was
if they
missing
track it.
mandatory practices, right?
Yeah. No, he came to, it was the OTAs. You can't force a guy to come to OTAs. You can't. Now, I don't know which one he missed, but you can't put in a contract you must be in, because then now it infringes on the collective bargaining.
He missed mandatory practices.
Okay.
That's why he was fined.
That's why he was
missed
fined.
mandatory practices.
But isn't that the one where it was like, where's Rodgers? I don't know where he's at.
Right. And
Yeah.
they fined him.
Yeah, it's
for
like,
missing
why didn't
practice.
y'all didn't conversate with them before y'all? But anyway, but they can't. It can't be in his contract, I don't believe, where they can say mandate that you go to OTAs, because that's what they collectively bargained that they not. So the NFLPA is not going to allow them to put that in his contract. They can try to do a handshake, but I don't even think they would do that, because still would be a violation of the NFLPA in collective bargaining. So
I would hope he wouldn't want to make that kind of stuff an issue, because for the first time in his career last year, he really just didn't perform at the level he's used to performing. Now, he might sit around and go, you know what? I had all kinds of issues for the team and all that, but the bottom line is his numbers were not as dominant. It was one of his worst seasons, if not his worst. The year last summer, he could say, well, I never really got to play, but I'm still the dominant guy. So, just work with me. I'll be all right. When it's time to turn the lights on, we'll get it done. But he didn't get it done. So I think it would not go over very well. He was like, guys, I know I'm kind of a question mark here. I'm coming off a bad year, but yeah, I'm going to go over to wherever, and you're not going to see me for the next week while we have practices. He could get away with it last year.
mm-hmm.
It would be harder to sell that this year and not look like a complete non-team guy.
That's the only thing that I would be concerned about. I'm not concerned about the OTAs in regard. Just be here for mandatory stuff. That's all I want you to be. Just be here for mandatory stuff. Now, the OTAs, you can come if you want to. You don't have to come. Take your trips during that time, and then after the off-season program is over. But when we talk, and I think he would want to, because he would be trying to learn new offense. He would try to, sort of mesh with all the other guys. So you would hope that he would want to do that. Now, the OTAs, you can't touch them. There's nothing you can do about it.
615-737-1025. It's time for Ask D-Mace. So get your questions in now. 615-737-1025. Call us. Text us. Our phone and text lines.
And it is Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
so there could be some Valentine's Day themed questions.
We will call Derek the Love Guru for the purpose of today's Ask D-Mace. Right. I do want to make one quick note in terms of a programming note. As I understand it, our coverage of the Daytona 500 on Sports Talk 830 will begin at 11:30 tomorrow. And on 102.5 The Game following the Vanderbilt baseball game. So the Game Nashville Sports Network is your home for NASCAR racing. Sunday, tune in for the Daytona 500 on Sports Talk 830 at 11:30 a.m. And on 102.5 The Game following the Vanderbilt baseball game, coverage of the Daytona 500 presented by Green Trees and the newcumberland.com.
Happy Friday and happy Valentine's Day to everyone out there. Hey, this is Derek Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a goal or a resolution to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. But at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his staff understands the frustration of this cycle, and that's why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain. With tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
He played 15 years in the NFL.
Quick throw.
He had over 12,000 receiving yards.
Midfield, and there he goes. 80 yards for the touchdown.
And now you can ask him anything. Have a question about football or life? Now's your time to ask D-Mace.
We'll welcome you in.
Now, D-Mace on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
It is time to ask D-Base on D-Base, Vinkin and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Before we do that, tune in tonight to 102.5 The Game for Vanderbilt baseball as the Commodores face Grand Canyon. Pregame begins at 6:30 and first pitch is at 7. Coverage also available on the 102.5 The Game app and at thegamenashville.com. It's Valentine's
Happy
Day.
opening day, by the way, the Vandy boys.
It's today. It's today. The opening day. When's the
Wait,
opening day?
is it Saturday?
Saturday?
It said tune in tonight to
Tonight.
102.5
Oh,
The Game.
So happy opening day. Happy
Okay, opening day on Valentine's Day.
Got to beat the weather because tomorrow's weather is not going to be all that
It's not?
great. So it's
Yes.
Well, I'm glad I cleaned out my garage the
Yeah.
other day.
You might want to find a life vest just in case with all of the rain I hear is
Ooh.
going to be here tomorrow. But it's time to ask D-Mace, and let's start with our good friend Eric on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Eric, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
First of all, guys, happy Valentine's Day, and I'm definitely glad I'm first. And I've got a dad joke, and I'll be up front. It's probably one of those where, after I say it, it's going to go womp womp because it's one I made up. Usually, a lot of times I make these up the day of. But, D-Mace, what do you get when you cross a boulder with a baby?
A baby with a hard head.
No, Kid Rock.
I like that one. That one wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. No, it wasn't bad.
Yeah. So, D-Mace, my ask D-Mace question is this, concerning Valentine's Day. I'm not going to ask you your plans for tonight. I'm not going to do that. But over the years, I don't know how long you've been married, but what would you say is probably, of all the Valentine's Day, the most memorable Valentine's Day that you've had with your wife? Was it, particular day? Could you be something you did at home, movie, restaurant, whatever it is? What would you say was your most memorable day for Valentine's Day between you and your wife? Guys, y'all take care. Happy Valentine's Day to you and all the listeners out there. Y'all take care, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. For one, I am not married, but I do have a girlfriend. So Valentine's Day, I guess the the older I get, I haven't quite looked at Valentine's Day the same. Like when it comes to my daughter, I got her some stuff, but she's doing her own thing. But I got her a few things that she'll get once she gets back home. But other than that, I just don't look at it like I used to look at it anymore. I don't honestly, I really don't. I would
classmates.
Oh yeah, when I was young, yeah. And you get the little
candies.
hearts and everything else. And
Do you like so and so?
Yeah, it's like, oh, she likes
You choose me?
Yeah, it's like, oh my goodness.
It said,
oh,
I
wow.
choose you. And there was a picture of a train.
Oh,
Shout out Ralph Wiggum for all my Simpsons fans.
I mean, I don't know how everybody else looks at Valentine's Day. I talked to Adam, early on in the show off air, and maybe he's a little bit like me. I don't know. But I'm just like, I don't make a big deal about it because I don't recognize it as a holiday anymore. That's just me. And I'm not saying that anyone else shouldn't. I'm just saying I really don't recognize it as a holiday anymore.
Maybe you need to be shot by Cupid.
It's not that it's not that I'm not shot by Cupid. It's just that why did they, out of 365 days of the year, why did they pick out February 14th? Why did they make a big deal? I know there's history behind it. I get that. But why has it been so commercialized? I shouldn't have to, like, whoever I'm in love with, that goes across the board for anybody. You shouldn't have to go extra on that day. It's just
You're
like,
saying you need to bring it every day.
yeah, it's just something that you do like throughout the year. It's not like, oh, I got to make this day, and then you end up spending more money than you want. Then one person's still not happy, or you're trying to make up for what you didn't do last year, or you're trying to make up for something you may have done, days ago, and you didn't take out the trash. She mad at you, or you didn't make his favorite dish, and he's upset. So you want to buy each other roses on Valentine's Day and thinking that's going to make it better. That should be every day.
We need to hire
once a month.
We need to hire the love guru. Do you remember this terrible movie from 2008? Or was it 2000? Yeah, it's 2008. The Love Guru with Mike Myers playing a culturally insensitive Love Guru, and it was actually a hockey movie because it was Romany Malco, I believe, was the hockey player playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they hired this love guru to help him because he was in a slump. I don't know. It was a terrible movie. It would not have been made in 2025. Again, like a culturally insensitive character that Mike Myers was playing at the time. But maybe we need to hire the love guru for Derek.
I just look at it as, listen, people are spending an extreme amount of money for nothing. And Valentine's Day is one of those days I think you should just say, I'm not doing it on this day. If you want to do it on Christmas, fine, do it on Christmas. If you want to do it on a birthday, fine, great, do it on a birthday. But it's like, nah, prices are too high nowadays. We can just stay home and have a nice dinner, watch a movie, or we can just stay home and, just with some friends and enjoy the night together instead of trying to, spend, because when you go out, you're spending no less than $150 for two people. That's just the dinner. I'm not talking about the parking, and I'm not talking about the drinks. So dinner, you may spend about $110. Drinks is gonna get you about $200, and then parking another $55. So $255 out the door right there. You know it. Before you even walk out the restaurant, not to say, hey, baby, you want to go grab a drink over here? Let's catch an Uber, and then an Uber. If you figure I'm gonna be drinking, you ain't gonna park. Ubers. So look at how much money you didn't spend on one night. Then you wake up in the morning, y'all mad at each other.
I do think sometimes the spontaneous date night where it happens, that can be more effective.
Exactly.
Than because there's so much hype, like you're saying with Valentine's. It's harder to get into the places, and there's
then they charge.
You got
to pay a minimum of $200 for both places.
Teammates, I can just hear every guy just like saying, "Amen, amen," and they're sending the exact clip to their girlfriends, like, see, hey, we should just do it right now.
And they're going to say, do you want to be single like Derek or not have a wife like Derek? Let's say that, not single.
Do you want to go home with the Justin
like
Fields of women at the jukebox tonight? At the jukebox?
Absolutely. So I am not advocating for guys to go out and do that. I'm just saying, because I don't want you to be put in the doghouse, brother, or be sleeping on the couch somewhere.
All right. Let's pivot.
Call Tyrone.
Let's pivot to Andrew from Dover on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. He says, Derek, in honor of the great Air McNair, on what would be his birthday, what is your most memorable moment and funniest moment with Steve McNair? He would have been 52 today, I want to say.
52. Wow, today is his birthday. So happy birthday to the great, rest in peace, Steve McNair. Great human, friend. We're not going to even talk about what he did on the football field, but I think one of the best, and this was off air, and this was off the football field. This one, Steve had just retired, and we were still in Baltimore, and I hadn't talked to Steve since he retired, because it was back here in Nashville. And Marcy was doing a podcast. And again, we hadn't talked to Steve. They were doing their thing. I was still playing. So it was like, we're concentrating on what's here, but she was doing a podcast. And, made the call to Steve, was like, can you, and he was like, absolutely, I do it. So stuff like that, because he didn't have to do it. I know he had a lot of stuff going on here in Nashville, but he decided, I do it. And that's just the type of guy that he was. So those are the things that I remember. And just on a football field, I mean, Steve wasn't the quarterbacks are different. They're not always, doing the funny things or something else. Now he used to always mess with Takahashi. That's what used to get me. Like Tak would be doing something with somebody else, and the minute Takahashi would run from anywhere. I don't care if he was stretching somebody else. Chalk would run, and he would mess with Takahashi just to mess with him, just to play with him because he knew it would come over here. But that was always funny because he used to get him a lot in the training room where Taki be taping somebody else and Steve would say something. And Taki be torn between going to Steve and continuing to do the tape. So that was pretty funny.
615-737-1025. If you have more questions for Derek, you can get them in now. 615-737-1025. Nashville's best deal this week is 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. 312 Pizza Company serves the best pizza in town, as well as Chicago-style eats like Chicago dogs, Italian beef sandwiches, and more. Head to thegamenashville.com/deals now to get half off a $30 gift card to 312 Pizza Company while supplies last. D. Mace Vin Ginadonic, 1025, 1063 the game. Were you about to sing?
This is a great Valentine's Day song. It's also a great dig at the opposing team's fans.
Yeah.
Like if you they have this thing at certain arenas called the Lost Fan. Let's say it's the Predators playing the Kings, right? There'll be the one random Las Vegas fan, and they'll play this. He's got the jersey on. He's sitting by himself. He's the only guy in the like, hey, dude, are you lost? Like your team's not playing here tonight, so they'll play this song. It's pretty good.
Kevin on our text line wants
just
to
keep
say,
him on there for like 30 seconds, just like he doesn't know what to do.
based on your story
Yes.
from about Steve McNair, Kevin on our text line says that man, meaning Takahashi, deserves a special award from the city. Not only is he a very, very important piece of the Titans for decades, he left there every afternoon and went and dedicated himself to Metro Public high school kids, brought us cleats, gloves, equipment, and never asked for anything in return.
Yeah, Taki is you talking about salt of the earth people. Takahashi is one of those guys. He and his wife and his kids. Crazy part about it is that, I've been knowing Takahashi since Michigan State because he was the trainer, one of the trainers there. So we met, I think it was my sophomore year at State or my junior year. And it seemed like once I got here, then Taki got here. And it was like, oh, Taki, we're together. So Taki and I have been together forever. And I end up selling Taki. I think their first house here, we were moving out of our house, and we end up selling it to John and his wife. So I'm not sure if they're still in that house or not, but Taki is just one of the best just people. I've never seen Takahashi mad and without a smile on his face. And I mean that seriously.
All right. We have, let's see, this is from an unnamed texter. Derek, did you ever receive a gift from a groupie delivered to the stadium or practice facility and left for you? We've been in a lot of groupie questions lately. We had groupie questions last week. Yes, I know it's during the off season, but your groupies may not have had another destination to send them to.
No, I have never gotten anything from a groupie. Obviously, you get like just random, like people, do like little small, like glass etches of you and they send it to you, stuff like that. But I've never had somebody actually send me something to the facility.
I will tell you a funny story. I remember before I moved to Nashville, when I was a reporter covering the Washington Capitals, the Capitals used to have this convention before every season. So during the preseason, on a weekend, on a Saturday, they rented out the big convention center in downtown DC, and alums would come, the players would be there, there'd be panels and autograph signings. It was a cool event. And usually the reporters would go because you could get a lot of good stuff there. And I remember standing by an autograph table where Carl Alsner, who was a defenseman for the Capitals, was a great guy. He would sign anything you put in front of him. I swear to God, a woman showed up with a whip that you probably could have purchased at an adult novelty store, wanted all of the players to sign.
All of the players.
All of them. And Carl Alsner, maybe he didn't know exactly what he was getting into, but I watched him sign this whip.
I'm not sure if I'd have signed that.
Decline.
You could ask the Predators players sometime. Ask them if you ever see them out and about and you have them in an unguarded moment, ask them, what's the weirdest thing you've ever been asked to autograph? I imagine
that would have to be up there.
That would have to be up there.
D-Mace, we got into some discussions during the break. So
here's your Ask D-Mace.
Here is my Ask D-Mace. Have you ever in a youth basketball game shot the ball at the wrong basket?
That's ironic that you asked me that. I do have a story.
And was it on Valentine's Day? No,
it was not on Valentine's Day. But so this was the summer of my freshman year, going into my freshman year.
This is in high school.
High school, yeah, going into my freshman year.
So this is not like third grade or second grade.
No, I say third grade when you just running around, don't know your head from your feet. I mean, you just running around throwing the ball. You don't know what you're doing. But no, my brain had been developed somewhat, So we're playing at this place called St. Cecilia. It's like a lot of people play there in Detroit. Games, they have a lot of games there. So we were there one day, and my my father's uncle was the varsity coach, but he also coached the JV as well. So I ended up going to Mumford, one, because it was close, and then two, my uncle knew the basketball coach. So, it was good. It was a familiar face, so to speak. So we're playing, it was JV ball during the summer. So I could play a little ball. Yeah, I had a little hoop in me. So we go to the first half, you tip the ball off, whatnot. So we go the whole first half. It's a good game. We go the whole first half. So the second half, you got to tip off again. They made you tip off again.
Okay.
So my mind, I'm the guard. The ball gets tipped to me. And I'm running. It's just a wide open layup. I'm like, boom, I get it. Boom, I lay it up like, I'm sweet with it too. Like Isaiah Thomas. I'm sweet with it. And I'm like, yeah. I turn around, everybody looking at me like, no. And my dad and my uncle, no lie, they got up and walked out. After that, they called me Wrong Way Ricky.
In the 9th grade, I can see this.
It was
in the
going
3rd
into
grade.
the 9th grade, Willie. I wasn't in the 9th grade yet.
Okay, so you weren't officially
sure.
in school.
Well,
Good
no. I
grief.
didn't know. It's worse. I take that back because it was the second semester, and I had transferred over to the second. It was my freshman year, second semester, the basketball season.
What in?
Yeah, I know. So I take that back. Yeah, it
What,
was
were you
bad.
reliving that like that night where you're lying in your bed going,
Yeah.
"What did I do? What happened?
Yes.
Why did I do that?"
Didn't nobody let me? They came home and told everybody about it.
Did you guys at least
Man.
win the game?
I don't even know if we won the
Yeah.
game.
You
or
just
not.
forgot everything
Yeah, I
after
just
that.
forgot everything after that, man.
That makes me feel
Was that
better.
the end of your career?
No, that was it was the beginning.
It was close.
It was the beginning
I
of
can't
the
put Mason in the game. I don't know what basket he's going to shoot at.
It was the beginning of the end.
Dude, to make you feel better, I just saw someone do that like
I mean,
a couple weeks ago.
It happens. Listen, they even did it in the pros. This happened in the pros before, I'm sure. So I mean,
Oh, you just trying to you're just trying to make it feel better. That's what
people
you're
have
doing.
ran into the wrong end zone.
That
That's
has
happened in the NFL.
Yeah.
So hey, there you go.
It makes me feel better about my athletic glory, winning a little league game on a walk-off error. I hit a dribbler down the line. I wasn't hauling butt. I was slow, but the throw clearly beat me to the plate. But the first baseman dropped the ball. I was safe enough, and we won.
And the winning run came in?
Yes.
The celebration was
Oh,
just
yeah.
as exciting. Yeah.
He wasn't hauling
I was
butt. He was
thrilled.
just butt.
Yeah. That is a good way to describe my Little League baseball career. Straight butt. Trey is on our phone line. WilsonCounty.com. Trey, thank you for calling. Please go ahead. Trey, you there? Trey, call back. I don't want to hear that.
Yeah, Trey. I don't know what Trey was doing.
Roll your window up.
With the phone in his pocket. He having his
Probably,
cup holder,
probably.
something, butt
Oh,
calling
man.
us. So, but yeah, that was my that was the beginning of the end. Now the end didn't happen, right then and there. It took a couple of more games, but ultimately, I didn't get elevated up to varsity. Let's just say that.
Did anybody take you aside and say, "All right, Derek, let me just tell you, I think football's your sport."
I was still trying. I mean, I spent that year on JV, came back out my sophomore year, spent that year on JV. And then after that, my coach and my head football coach, which was a track coach, he kept telling me, "Mason, what you doing playing that basketball? Told you, play football."
By the way, Derek, did you see? I know you saw it because I told
Yes.
you. Right before the show came on, the breaking news came out that Tyreek Hill and Noah Lyles
Oh, yes.
are going
This
to
is
race
a great
each
Ask
other.
D-Mace. This
Yes.
is perfect for Ask D-Mace because
Yes.
D-Mace has run track as well. That was probably your number 2 sport. Is that fair? Especially after we just learned about your basketball career.
Yeah, that was short-lived.
Okay, so give the details of what's going on here. This is fascinating.
So if I recall correctly, Noah Lyles is
He's a gold medalist.
A gold medalist.
Mhm.
He's an Olympic sprinter, a gold medal winning Olympic sprinter. And there was a feud at some point where he and Tyreek Hill went back and forth. That Tyreek Hill, who's widely considered the fastest player in the NFL, said that he could beat Noah Lyles in a race.
Mhm.
Well, it's finally happening. They will race, according to People Magazine. This is where I
Right.
saw the news. People Magazine breaking big news. It looks like it's going to be, is it a 50-yard?
Well, they have to decide the distance. Now,
Okay.
this is the interesting thing. Tyreek he thinks he can beat him in a 40. Noah Lyles says that's not a real race.
It's not.
So I think Lyles won the 100, right?
So it should be 60.
So basically, he said, look, the 100, let's not kid ourselves. I would kill you in the 100. He's saying this to Tyreek. It's a blowout.
Oh, it is.
But they're trying to find the distance that they think it would be a fair race.
Here's some background.
Okay.
So Hill joked that Lyles was scared to compete against him in the 40 meters, while Lyles said 100 meters would be a blowout.
Right.
They indicated the race would be a distance between the two. The public back and forth between Hill and Lyles started when the Dolphins wideout criticized the Olympian following Lyles' comments in 2023 surrounding how American sports leagues shouldn't deem their annual winners as world champions. In mid-August 2024, Hill appeared on Kay Adams' podcast and said he would beat Lyles if the two squared off in a 50-yard dash. Later that month, Lyles responded at the Paris Olympics after winning a gold medal in the 100 meters and said he'd accept Hill's challenge to a race, but would have to be the signature race often associated with being the fastest man on the planet, the 100 meters.
Well, I would race him in a 60 because Tyreek has history with the 60-meter dash. You ran it in college, indoor. That's what you run.
You run
a lot
60
of time.
indoor. Interesting.
Yeah, a lot of meets you
baseball.
You do run,
the scout distance that they have you run is the 60.
Yeah.
And when I was growing up, the 50 used to be a thing. I don't think they even do the 50
Yeah,
anymore.
I don't do the 50.
But that's so the distance is interesting. So what you being a person that's done track, what is the key to the distance? Like getting off the block quick.
Yeah, getting started.
The shorter the race is, the more
shorter the
important
race.
start
Yeah,
is,
the
right?
more short. Because some guys like Lyles, he doesn't want to race a 40 because his get off is good, but his get off is not may not be as quick as Tyreek Hill. So Tyreek Hill may have a half a step on him getting out. Lyles starts to pick up speed as he's going, so he may reach top speed at about he's getting there around 40. Well, Tyreek he still has him. He has him. Tyreek will probably, if Tyreek doesn't win, it would be close. It would be, but once you get
even
past
at
that
age
40,
30, even at Tyreek's age now, you think he could still compete?
I think, yeah, he has to train.
Remember, Chris Johnson wanted to do this at one time.
I think
Way
he
back,
has to train.
CK2K.
Yeah, he has to train to run that. Because Miami don't want to run a 60 and blow out a hamstring. So you have to train. You have to train to do
the
that.
Dolphins are like, wait a second, Tyreek.
Exactly.
Award?
So, but I think Lyles, if it's a 55 meters, I think Lyles win. It'll be close, but I think Lyles will win.
615-737-1025. We'll get back into the quarterback discussion, talking about the NFL draft, because I have a question that I've been thinking about all week. We'll do that next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D. Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 1025, 1063, The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. We'll take it to the bank at around 140. We'll see how we did last week during the Super Bowl. But before we get there, there's something I've been asking myself, guys, as we've discussed all of the quarterback possibilities. It relates to Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. I was wondering, when was the last time there was this much angst about quarterbacks who could go number one overall in the NFL draft? We've heard a lot of people talk about, I don't know about Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward as franchise quarterbacks. Now, someone's going to take them high because they need quarterbacks and they're there. But, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, they're not Jaden Daniels. They're not Drake May. They're not Caleb Williams. They're not insert, potential number one overall quarterback here. And it got me thinking about, when was the last time there was this much angst, this much hand-wringing about quarterbacks at the top of the NFL draft. And I'm not including the 2022 quarterback class, Kenny Pickett, who, by the way, hey, Kenny Pickett on the field when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I'm just saying. But Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, I'm not talking, nobody expected those quarterbacks to go at the top of the draft. I'm talking specifically about quarterbacks who were expected to go number one overall.
And I think the last 2 years probably wouldn't qualify either, right? It was about what we thought.
I think everybody, if I recall correctly, everybody knew that Caleb Williams was going number one overall.
Right.
There wasn't much of a question. The year that Joe Burrow was the number one overall pick, everybody knew that Joe Burrow was going to be the number one pick.
Do we think Bryce Young ascended to that status a couple years ago?
That's a good question.
I think he pretty much did by the time the draft rolled around.
Yeah,
now, the
because
months
it was
leading up to the draft,
who do you take? Do
Yeah.
you take because of his stature? Do you take C.J. Stroud, or do you take, Bryce Young?
But
I think that's what it was. Yeah.
It seems like Bryce Young, though, had a little separation
In
within-
college.
Yeah, and I think in the months leading up to the draft, there were questions about his height, but I think people still thought he was going to win. That's my recollection. I could be
Right. But there weren't, if I recall correctly, there weren't questions about whether Bryce Young or CJ Stroud would go number one overall. It was expected that one
they
of
would
them-
go. The quarterbacks are going off the board early.
Right. So my first thought, when I thought about this, my first thought went to 2016, because the top two quarterbacks in that draft were Jared Goff and Carson Wentz. And Jared Goff was under 500 as a starter for Cal. Cal is not a football superpower. I believe his record was 14-23 as a starter for Cal. Carson Wentz had a good record, but he played for, what was it, North Dakota State, right? Is that, I always get FBS and FCS confused. Which one is that?
He was in the
FCS.
FCS.
That's North
FCS.
Dakota State.
Right. So there were questions about, hey, he's playing well, but he's not playing, FBS quality competition on a nightly basis, on a weekly basis. And we saw how their careers have gone in divergent directions. Jared Goff went to the Rams. If I remember correctly, he didn't start immediately. He was thrust in there at one point. It did not go well for him. Carson Wentz, I believe, was in the midst of an MVP caliber season, his second season, but then he gets injured. Of course, Nick Foles wins the Super Bowl for the Eagles that year. I hope I have all of my timeline correct here. But, since then, Jared Goff goes to Detroit, becomes, one of the better starters in the NFL. Carson Wentz, backup. So I'm just wondering, as I said, all of this hand-wringing about Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, is it misplaced? That's the question that I want to know.
I mean, you can go back to 2002, David Carr and Joey Harrington. David Carr was drafted number 1 overall, and Harrington was, I think, 3. You can go
Not
back
a good
to
year to be looking for your
You
quarterback.
can go back to the 06 when it was Vince Young, Matt Leinart, and Jay Cutler. All of them went
man.
top 11.
We spent so much time talking about those three guys.
Mhm.
Wow.
So now I think that draft was probably a little bit more angst than this one.
So I went through some drafts. I even asked Teron Davenport when I was leaving yesterday, and I asked him, when do you think the last time this was? And he mentioned the 2017 NFL draft. And what I did was I looked at where these quarterbacks finished on Mel Kiper's final big board before that year's draft. And then I looked at where those quarterbacks were picked. So in 2017, Mitch Trubisky was the number 2 pick in the NFL draft. He finished 19th on Mel Kiper's big board. Patrick Mahomes was the 10th pick in that draft. He finished number 26 on Mel Kiper's final big board. Deshaun Watson was the 12th overall pick. He finished number 34. So there were questions about all of those quarterbacks. We know how that's turned out. Patrick Mahomes is, has an argument, maybe not, after the Super Bowl, but there was an argument about whether he could be the greatest quarterback of all time. We've seen what's happened with Mitch Trubisky and Deshaun Watson. By the way, on his current big board, Mel Kiper has Shedeur Sanders at 4 and Cam Ward at 5. So I mean, it's not it's an unscientific poll,
Right.
but I was just trying to use that as a gauge for where these quarterbacks were versus where they were selected.
I'm curious too. Let's just take 2016 of Goff and Wentz. I wonder on February whatever. Here we are on Valentine's Day. Let's just say Valentine's Day of 2016. My recollection is that Goff and Wentz weren't anywhere close to 4 and 5 on the board, let alone 1 and 2. That would be interesting to go back historically because the Floyd Reese adage is they always move up. Quarterbacks always move up the board between the start of the evaluation period and the actual day of the draft. And look no further than last year with J.J. McCarthy and how his stock went way up. I don't think on Valentine's Day last year you would have had a lot of people saying Bo Nix is going to go in the first round. Is that fair? But they ended up there. Every year is different, but I think more often than not, the Floyd Reese adage plays correctly, that the quarterbacks always slide up, especially this year when you're looking around and saying, what are my other options at quarterback? Who's going to play quarterback for me? There's so many teams looking around going, Kirk Cousins, blah, blah, blah. You can go right down the list. There's about 20 of them, and none of them are going to blow you away.
I found Mel Kiper's first mock draft from 2016, January 14th, 2016.
Okay.
Well, I'm good at Googling. It's one thing I'm good at. That's why I didn't go to the bar with the jukebox, because I was Googling.
Okay.
It's funny to see who they have the Titans picking.
Google how to talk to girls.
Yes. Well, good thing I'm married. I'm still working on it. He had Joey Bosa going number 1 overall to the Tennessee Titans in January 2016. He had Jared Goff going number 2 overall to the Browns
Okay.
in January of 2016. I'm looking to see where Carson Wentz is in here. Is he even in here? Hello? He has Paxton Lynch going 15th overall to the LA Rams. That was before the trade. Carson Wentz going 22nd overall to the Houston Texans. This was his first mock draft in 2016. On the big board, on his final big board of 2016, Goff was number 5, Wentz was number 7.
Interesting. So he kept those guys not 1 and 2.
Right.
But then they get elevated based upon.
They got elevated, but not up to 1 and 2.
Number 5 and number 7 on his final big board.
He's never had them at 1 and 2.
Right.
Okay.
And we understand that Mel Kiper is not the end all be all. People love to poke holes.
Again, unscientific.
But it's just one. It's just somebody who does it every year. You can see sometimes there is a lot of movement between where a mock draft sits now as opposed to on draft day.
You mentioned a quarterback during the break that I think we should discuss. It was one of the quarterback classes I looked at, 2019. The top 3 quarterbacks taken in that draft: Kyler Murray at number 1, Daniel Jones at number 6, controversially, and Dwayne Haskins at number 15. On Mel Kiper's final big board, he had Murray number 6, Haskins number 7, and Daniel Jones number 23.
And I wonder where it was in his first mock draft.
I bet I can find that,
because I can vividly remember. And that was not a year where the Titans were looking at a quarterback, but the draft was in Nashville, if you remember. And there was a lot of talk about Kyler Murray and his unique skill set, right? Shorter than maybe any quarterback this side of Doug Flutie has ever been. dominant college player, but how would that skill set translate? We had one scout on that said, I have him not even in a first round grade.
I have the first mock draft of 2019 for Mel Kiper. He had Dwayne Haskins going number 6 overall to the New York Giants, who took Daniel Jones in that spot. Kyler Murray going 13th overall to the Miami Dolphins. And I'm looking to see where Daniel Jones is on this list.
Probably not even on the radar.
Daniel Jones going 29th overall to the Patriots.
Okay, so still in the first round.
Yes.
But that's a great example of how a guy can move up. Like right now, and we don't know that this is going to happen, but those ones you just pulled up, that's about 3 different year samples. And in all 3, you see pretty significant movement up, much more so than down among the quarterbacks that are getting talked about. Fair to say? Mm-hmm. So Murray, there was question marks a lot about, because there still probably has never been a quarterback quite like Murray. Would we agree?
Yeah, no, I would agree.
And so he goes first overall. And we knew when I was sitting out there in the crowd in Nashville, we all knew that Murray was the first pick. Everybody knew that they were going to take him. So it became pretty unanimous. And I think the same was true with Bryce Young. Mm-hmm. So that's a great case study, is if you're sitting there right now and you're the Cardinals and you're looking back on him as your first pick, how do you feel about that? Do you like the production? Like, he's been quintessential.
I did pull up
quarterback, but not knock your socks off.
For context, I did pull up Mel Kiper's final 2019 mock draft.
Okay.
So we had, in the first mock draft, he had Kyler Murray going 13th. In his final mock draft, he had Kyler Murray going first. Okay.
Perfect.
He had Dwayne.
The Floyd Reese adage.
He had Dwayne Haskins. Yeah. He had Dwayne Haskins, who he had 6th in his first mock draft, going 10th in his final mock draft. So down from 6th to 10th. I'm looking for Daniel Jones. He had Daniel Jones going 17th in his final mock draft, 29th in his first mock draft.
So he moved up.
12.
Moved up a lot.
Yes.
They move up more often than they don't.
But I mean, there's always going to be, and this is what we talked about yesterday somewhat. Right now, it's 2 guys. It's Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. After, the Senior Bowl, you started to hear some talk about Jackson Dart. It wasn't great, but it was like, man, it seems like they want him to be sort of the Bo Nix of this year's draft. So they are going to elevate somebody else. They will. It's just it's going to happen. Yeah. It is going to happen. They are going to elevate somebody else to have sort of this 3-tier horse race on who's going to be the first quarterback taken and whether that quarterback's going to be taken number 1. So
do you remember? I'm trying to recall the year that the Titans took Mariota. Yeah. I don't remember. I remember there being quite a bit more discussion about whether Mariota was even with Winston. Winston, I think, if I recall, was more. He's going number 1.
Yeah, I think
he's going to be
number 1.
Mariota, I remember there being a little bit more of a range of what people thought he would be. I don't think he was a hands down, he's going 1 or 2. Maybe by the end of the evaluation, you had a pretty good feeling. Mm-hmm. But is that fair? Like, I think there was a lot of question marks because of the unique offense that Oregon played. His skill set, would it translate? But he ends up going 2. So with Ward and Shedeur Sanders, I think the point of this exercise is, once again, if you can create that buzz, and it's out of your control to some degree, but you hope that there is a swell in the narrative that Ward and Sanders work out really well and their stock goes up. Mm-hmm. And then you throw in maybe a couple other, 1 or 2 other guys, and it really creates competition for the first overall pick.
I think
then you're in a good position.
Yeah, I think you having a number 1 pick, you have to. There's almost this. We got to drum up some interest somehow, some way in some of these other guys, and especially, let's say, the guy that many probably want to move up in the draft, whether it's Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. You always want to drum up more interest. Like, yeah, we may, it's like you would think, okay, they're more inclined to take him than not. So if they're taking him, let's try to make a deal to move up because we want him. one of those deals. So, but even in the Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota, you were right, because they were just think about it. Back in 2015, people were really wondering if Marcus Mariota could play underneath center. You don't play underneath center no more. And that's what the talk was with Marcus Mariota. Like, can he play underneath center? That's not even a question you ask anymore, because so many offenses are ran with the quarterback in sort of this mini shotgun.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on the rookie quarterback situation. 615-737-1025. I also want to share some of these other big boards I looked up in the process of doing this research. There are some interesting numbers. It's always fascinating to look back years later on where these things were projected to be. We'll do that next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Talking quarterbacks. We'll get to take it to the bank in the next segment. So here, I thought this was interesting as I was doing this quarterback research. This was the 2018 NFL draft. 4 quarterbacks went in the top 10 in that draft. Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, and Josh Rosen. Remember Josh Rosen?
He loves tennis.
Yes. He got
That was the big
traded
thing.
after 1 year.
Yeah, he flopped.
So on the final big board for Mel Kiper, Josh Allen was number 5, Darnold was number 6, Rosen was number 10, and Mayfield was number 12. And Mayfield went first overall. But Willie, you asked me to look up the first mock draft from 2021.
Another interesting one, and remember the context of 2021. It was a college season in 2020 that was obviously without fans and crazy. The height of the COVID. What do we do? Do we play? Do we not play? Remember, for a while the Big Ten wasn't even going to play, and then they decided to play late, and this affected some of the guys in that draft in a big way. And affected that first round. So the research and the preparation for that draft wasn't quite the same as other years, but this is still an interesting draft to look back on.
So Trevor Lawrence went number 1 overall, followed by Zach Wilson and Trey Lance. 1, 2, 3. Justin Fields went number 11 overall. So,
And I believe the Bears traded up to get Fields, and
if
the
I
San
remember.
Francisco traded up to get Lance.
Yes. So quarterbacks went 1, 2, 3, and 11. Mel Kiper's first mock draft of 2021. Trevor Lawrence going number 1. Zach Wilson going number 4. Justin Fields going number 7. Trey Lance going number 8.
How can you have, and this is not the first time this happens, and so it's sort of like a rhetorical question. How can you miss off on a quarterback that bad, meaning Zach Wilson? Like, you got all these projections are him,
But it
top
happens a
5
lot.
pick. Yeah,
It
and that's
happens a
what I'm
lot.
saying. It's like,
Yeah.
how do you like whiff on something like that? Because you're not the only person that's thinking that. If another team was in your position, they would have probably drafted him too. So it's just like, man, how do you whiff on something
But
like that?
my point is, look, I've heard Teron Davenport. He is all in on Shedeur Sanders. Maybe that's me exaggerating. He loves Shedeur Sanders as a prospect.
I do too.
He loves Shedeur Sanders. He thinks Shedeur Sanders would be a good fit here. But I feel like Teron is the minority when you look at, and this is not picking on Teron. My point is that a lot of people just have a lot of questions about these two guys, and it's like, well, I think Joe and Paul Kaharski talked about this earlier this week. Like, would Titans fans be mad if the Titans took a quarterback number 1 overall? Usually, when you take a quarterback number 1 overall, that's what you want to do. You want to do that. Would Titans fans be mad if the Titans took one of those 2 quarterbacks number 1 overall? It certainly seems like it based on the reaction that we get whenever we talk about this. But I'm just wondering, it's like these things change so much. We just went through the change in perception from, the beginning of the process through the end of the process. So I'm just wondering if this whole, I'm not sure about Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward thing is very overblown.
Okay, this is the question. Not necessarily, because again, I think when you have that number 1 pick, now it's like, we got to get a Patrick Mahomes. We got to get that guy, a Jaden Daniels, that's going to pop right away. We got to get a CJ Stroud. And I understand picking that high. Yes, you do want an immediate impact guy. So I get that. But there's not one of those guys out there. But if you feel, Titans, that you can move out of that number 1 spot and still be able to get one of these 2 quarterbacks, then okay, do it. I think people would look at it different if you move down to 5 and got Shedeur Sanders, as opposed to taking him number 1 overall. So if you move down to 5, 4, and 6, and one of those guys is still there, then maybe you take him. And I don't think the fan base will look at it as, man, that's the wasted pick, or that's a bad pick because you drafted him 5th overall or 6th overall. Well, that's right about the range that one of these quarterbacks was going to go anyway. So, but then it's what do you want? Do you want? I like Shedeur Sanders in this draft because I think he will come in and instantly pick up on things and have some immediate success. I think Cam Ward is more so in the Anthony Richardson sort of boat or the Will Levis sort of boat that has a high ceiling. He played better than those guys in college. I'm not saying that they're exactly alike. I'm just saying they're in that boat of, man, but if I take him, his upside is great. And if we reach that upside, he could ultimately be our franchise quarterback. So which one are you looking for? Are you going to take a gamble on both of them? Is sort of a gamble, I believe. But if you're going to take a gamble, are you going to take it on a guy you have to continue to develop, but is still in his high? Or are you going to take the guy that's safe, that you know you can win right away with him because he's ready to go?
That's a good question.
So which one do you take? And I think that's
winning right away is not the priority for me. If I'm picking,
it's got to be the priority for Brian Callahan because of the situation.
But he's not making the pick.
If they would have hired, this new regime would have hired Brian Callahan this year, then we can talk about what you're saying. Because now we got time. I got time. I know I got time. But he's not there. Those are not circumstances which he finds himself in. So. But either one, I think either guy, I do believe that either guy will turn out to be good pros.
I won't be mad if they have done their due diligence and they really believe one of those guys, whoever it is worthy of the first pick. You can't. History shows that those guys are going to be taken. I still think my mindset is you're better off trading the number one pick if you can create good value for it. And create is the wrong word because.
But then would you be okay if they drafted?
You got to hope that there is demand for that first pick, so that there's competition and you can work that and get assets and still get a really good player with the first pick you end up taking.
So if they move, let's say by chance, because I know it may be harder as you get outside the top 5 to draft one of these guys, but then again, it may not be. Say if you move down to 7. Maybe 8. And I know it's not, I'm just hypothetical here. And Shedeur Sanders is there at 8 or 7. Do you if the Titans chose to pick him, would you be okay with that?
I think that would be best case scenario, don't you think?
Okay.
You're getting more assets and get a shot at the best quarterback that's out there. I think that would be perfect storm. If you had that evaluation that you're getting the best quarterback that's in the draft and you're gaining other assets, I love that.
One texter says, I'm wondering if all those quarterbacks that failed through those drafts, can you guys tell me what weapons they had on offense, even though they failed? Because I believe none of them had a weapon. None of them had a number 1 receiver. None of them had a number 1 tight end. All of them had
every single year they were in the league.
I think maybe those, I don't know. All of them had below average weapons, which is what the Titans have. And that is why everyone should be ticked if they get a quarterback. Who is he going to throw the ball to? Calvin Ridley and...
I think Jamarcus Russell may have had a number 1 receiver that year.
Gosh. Oh boy.
In 07, I'm looking at that. David Carr, he had Andre Johnson, didn't he? Wasn't Andre Johnson there with him in Houston?
I don't think he came along till the next year. I think Johnson was the following year. But he
still had
on the same team.
Yeah, they were on the same team. Joey Harrington in Detroit, he didn't have Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson wasn't there then.
I can't remember that.
Well, let's use this for an example. Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
His first season as Arizona Cardinals quarterback, he had Larry Fitzgerald. I mean,
but Larry was toward the end of his career.
Still a sure-handed receiver, right?
Yeah.
He had a young Christian Kirk.
Yeah.
He had a young Christian Kirk. He had, let's see, Kenyon Drake was the best running back. So maybe not so great. But that's just one example. I can continue to look at this, but Kyler Murray had, in his mid-30s, Larry Fitzgerald, but Larry Fitzgerald still a good receiver, right?
Yeah, he still was a good. He wasn't a top 10 receiver, but he still was a reliable receiver for a young quarterback.
I'm going to look up the San Francisco 49ers here for a moment. The 2021 San Francisco 49ers. You vamp while I look this up.
Vamp.
It's a good question,
That
but
means-
I think
got it.
ultimately,
I had to think about it for a minute.
if you're a good quarterback
Uh-huh.
over the years, you will eventually you can't use the excuse if you never made it.
Mhm.
That, well, I just never had people to throw to.
And that- because that's what they
the
they
first year or
draft you
two,
for.
yeah. But you're supposed to be that
Elevate.
good that eventually you'll be on a team that has good receivers. If you're
Exactly.
around long enough.
But then you can, if you're that guy, you elevate. You help elevate.
in a perfect world,
yeah,
yes.
in a perfect world, you
Also,
help
Trey
elevate.
Lance didn't start most of the games for San Francisco. Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right.
did.
The end game is not necessarily to have a great rookie season. The end game is to become a part of a winning team, be the
Mhm.
quarterback for a winning team. So
Yeah.
eventually, a winning team is going to have good weapons around you.
Yeah, eventually, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt if you start off on a winning note.
Absolutely,
Yeah, so,
absolutely. It's a fair thing
um,
to throw out there, but I can't draft saying, "Well, I can't draft a quarterback because we don't have great weapons."
Yeah, but yeah, you can't do that. You know, if you got an opportunity to sign, you know, to draft one of these, and I'm not talking about in this draft. I'm just saying if you got an opportunity to draft that dude at quarterback, you don't say, "Well, I'm not drafting him because we don't have any weapons." No, I'm drafting him, and hopefully he can elevate the weapons we got, but we're going to add more around him. But yeah, this is again, because right now there's only two quarterbacks that truly stands out. We're in this sort of talking phase where since there's only two and those two really are like, maybe, then let's try to pick the alternative. Let's see what the alternative would be for the Tennessee Titans, because there's not a definitive guy out there in regards to these rookie quarterbacks. I mean, these guys that are coming in this year's draft. So I mean, again, if you feel whether, and I know this goes against everything, and if you feel that guy is him and you can't move, you draft him. If you feel whether it's Shador or Cam, if you
You're
feel
saying
that
even if it's their only pick,
yeah, if that's
If
your
he's number
if you're
one,
number
and that's it.
pick and you think that he's your guy, like, and you can't move off that pick, nobody's moving up. Take your guy, take him. Because if you don't take him, it happens every year. And Titan fans, you can say no, it wouldn't be the case. And anybody on these airwaves that talk on their show, they can't say, oh, it wouldn't be the case. If you stick with that number one pick and you don't draft one of those quarterbacks and you think one of those quarterbacks can be your dude, and you draft somebody else and that quarterback goes on and he has a good rookie year, they're going to be crucifying you the next year. So my thing is, take who you're going to take. And if you feel Shador Sanders is worth, or Cam Ward is worth, or Jackson Dart, even though that may be pushing a little bit, is worth it, then take him. Take him with the number one pick. Because you got to deal with the repercussions, whether he's on your team or not. Because if he's on your team, he does bad, then okay. If he's not on your team, he does great, then you had an opportunity to draft him.
615-737-1025. Just to put a bow on a topic we've talked about a lot today. Chuck on our text line says, I'm taking the girl by the jukebox because she's probably a more well-rounded individual and empathetic to how I feel, still being at the bar at midnight on Valentine's Day.
and if she likes good tunes, that's a
Yeah.
good
Stayed around.
a good trait as well.
Beauty
like
is
good-
in the eye of the
appreciate good-
beholder.
Good tunes.
You gotta
Yeah.
know music. You gotta know music. Like that's one of those things. Like you gotta know, like music. You gotta know music. Like if you don't know music, then I don't what? Like, cause we can't be talking all the time in the car. Turn on some tunes, then you start
And you just
vibing
have
out
no
together.
opinion?
Yeah,
Come on, you got to have what
Exactly.
you like. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, to be fair, one thing I'm feeling like my music taste has been suffering lately because
because you got a kid.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
the other day we were doing the shuffle in the car. He was listening to songs, and then there was one, and like I have got, the screen on my dash that has the picture of the song, and it was a poop emoji with headphones on. The name of the song was called "Farting Around the House," and Arlo really wanted to listen. It was like, Dad, put on the song with the poop or something along those lines. So my music taste has suffered as a result of being a dad.
You'll come back.
All of us suffered. We had
Yeah.
a period in our life where we were listening to just kid music every time you got in the car.
But I think the word is hangability. If you like
Yeah.
good tunes, if you want good hangability, you got to know some tunes. You got maybe a little movie, some pop culture that makes you hangable by the jukebox. And at midnight when people are hanging, that's what you need.
That's what he mean. The well-rounded. You got hangable material, potential. You hangable. Welcome to David. Welcome to current state. You got hangable potential.
You seem hangable.
You see hangable.
Is this the song you were talking about?
This is exactly. We got to go to break. We're not playing this for everybody. This is indeed the song. 615-737-1025. We'll take it to the bank. Coming up next, Willie Donnie, Derek Mason, Adam Pinkett, 1025, 1063 The Game.
Happy Friday, everyone. Once again, this is Derek Mason, D. Mason. You heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD. All right. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a goal to shed some extra pounds only to come up a few short. But I got a solution here. Because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain. With tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more, they will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D-Mace, Finken, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company coming up next. But before we get to Jared, let's take it to the bank. David Janes, let's go over our Super Bowl edition of Take It to the Bank from last week.
All right, guys. So, Adam, let's start with you because you're the first one I see on here.
Okay.
So, you said that AJ Brown touchdown. AJ Brown did get a touchdown. You said tails that for the opening coin toss. You said tails over heads. So you got that point for that. You got a point for AJ Brown touchdown. You didn't get a point for Kelsey at least 75 receiving yards. I don't even think he hit 50.
No, he didn't. He had a bad game.
Yeah, he did. He did. And you said the Chiefs would trail at halftime, which they did. You also said that there would be someone crying over the national anthem. That happened.
Thanks, Chris Jones.
You said Jason Kelsey would sit next to Taylor Swift. That did not happen. And you picked gray or silver for Tom Brady.
It was black.
It was black. Point to me. And you also said purple Gatorade.
Okay.
And it was definitely not purple.
So I got 3 of my 4 regular
all agree on that.
selections and one of my
With a total of
extras.
10 points.
Okay, I'll take 10 points.
You have 125 total points.
All right.
Now, did you take over D-Mace? We'll see. All right, D-Mace. You said Philly would win. That was correct. You said Travis would get over 5.5 catches. He got 4.
Dang it.
You said Saquon will have a touchdown for receiving or rushing. He didn't get a touchdown at all. And you said Chris Jones would get a sack. That did not happen.
Dang it.
You also said someone would cry during the national anthem. You got that. You said Mama Kels was going to be sitting next to Taylor. Looked like she didn't. And you said blue.
I think it
Blue
was
Gatorade and blue tie.
I think the tie was blue.
Listen here.
dark
Listen here.
navy
We're not
blue.
going to. No.
We're not doing
I
it.
think it was a very
It was-
dark shade.
It was
blue.
clearly black. We're not doing this. It was black.
It was not just dark blue. It was
Exactly.
dark navy.
It was
very
dark
navy.
navy blue.
It was black.
I believe that's
Listen
called
here.
midnight navy.
Yes.
We're not doing this again.
Willie,
Which falls
you
into
got
the
your
blue.
points, Willie. You
Let
How
got
me
many
your
see.
points did Derek get?
Derek, you got.
See, I like when D-Mace is on
four-
my side. We can make a good argument.
You got
Midnight
4
Navy.
total points for 121 as your total.
So I've overtaken
Yes,
Derek.
you did.
Hot
Yes.
diggity.
Okay.
Now, Willie,
it.
let's go to you,
It's not
the
good.
complainer of them all. You said the Chiefs would win. That did not happen. You said there'd be 1 missed field goal. That did not happen. You said Saquon Barkley over 100 yards. That did not happen. But
I'm not checking boxes. Oh, I did.
you said both QBs would combine for 3 or more touchdown passes. They had 5 total touchdown passes. You said no cry. You said Kelsey's mom would sit next to Taylor Swift. You said blue as in for the tie. And you said green Gatorade. Now, again, we've been
We've been through this.
through this.
We've been
You
through
got a
this.
total of 3.25 total points with 105.25 as your totality so far.
I need some serious March Madness. To
Hey,
come back.
what does that look like, Willie?
That looks like midnight navy.
Yeah,
It's
That
black,
black.
David.
Looks
You're
like-
next.
All right, we're
Like
not
you
doing
said,
this.
that navy and
Hey,
black. You're
we don't
right.
have
listen
time.
here. No, hold on. You had your choice. You had your chance on Monday to take this to court, and guess
Yes,
what?
that's
It
right.
didn't happen.
All right. So David,
So now to me.
Hey, there was some evidence that came in late. You know.
All right, hey, we're not in court. We're not in court right now.
Court is not in session.
All right, so I said,
Surprise witness.
be quiet, witness. I said D-Hop will have 2 catches for 20 plus yards. He did get 20 plus yards, but he did that with multiple catches. I did not say 2 plus, so I didn't get a point for that. I said Saquon would get less than 100 yards. That did happen. I said Dallas Goedert would get a touchdown. Dallas did not get a touchdown, but Dallas did win a Super Bowl for the first time in forever. But, there's that. We're not going to go into that anymore. But I also said the Chiefs would stop the tush push. They did not stop the tush push. That tush push would score them the touchdown for a first touchdown. I said cry, Kylie, black tie, which I got a point for that, and white Gatorade, and that did not happen.
So how many points did you give
I
yourself?
got 5 total points for a 99 totality.
Okay.
So I'm almost at the 100 club.
All right.
I'm so close.
Here we go.
Mm.
Since I'm in 1st
I'm
place
trying to
again,
hold off David for the medal stand.
in 1st place, since I'm there again, I'm going to go for it. All right, here we go. I was so inspired by last night's performance by the Americans. I think they're going to do it. Put me down for a USA win against Canada in Montreal
USA,
tomorrow. I'm
USA.
doing it. I liked what I saw from the
Okay.
Americans. I'm picking the Americans to defeat the Canadians tomorrow in Montreal. The other game, Finland and Sweden. Philip Forsberg with a goal against Finland. Kevin Lankinen will indeed start. It has been confirmed that Kevin Lankinen will start for Finland over UC Saros.
So that's not a pick.
No,
Right,
that's not.
been confirmed.
Yes. Philip Forsberg will score against Finland
Against
tomorrow.
Lankinen. Okay.
College basketball, number 1 at number 2. Auburn and Alabama. I'm taking the Tigers. The Tigers to win on the road against the Crimson Tide. And it's NBA All-Star Weekend. Damian Lillard, I believe, going for a three-peat in the three-point competition. I say he doesn't get it because Darius Garland will win the three-point competition. Shout out Vanderbilt. Darius Garland
Shout out
will win the three-point contest.
Very nice. Very nice.
Okay. All right. My first pick, I predict that it goes into overtime. The four nations, USA versus Canada, I predict it goes into overtime. I'm not predicting a winner, but that it goes into overtime. So that's 1. 2, I got UT to cover the spread. I think it's 13.
I saw
points.
12.5 over
12.5.
Vanderbilt.
Okay, I got Vandy to cover the spread. I got
Okay.
Vandy to cover the spread.
Okay.
But I got Chaz. He needs to get going. I got Chaz 17 points or better. Okay.
Vanderbilt at Tennessee tomorrow.
Yes, Vanderbilt at Tennessee. So I got Vandy to cover. Chaz over 17 points.
You need one more pick.
I got the hockey.
Yep.
And then let me see. Gosh, I didn't have anything else. You know what? I'm gonna stay with the SEC. Kentucky and Texas. I got Texas winning that.
All right.
I got Texas winning.
Interesting.
Are
They're
you
playing
taking
at
points?
Texas. No,
Are you
I'm
taking
not.
points?
I'm just straight up. They'll win straight up.
Straight up.
Mhm.
I'd say that's a little degree of difficulty. That's pretty good.
All right, Willie. You're
All
up.
right. I will say the winner of the Alabama-Auburn game will have 90 or more points. I think it's going to be a tremendous shootout up and down. I think it's going to be a thriller.
That game is plus 1.5. So they think it's gonna be close.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
These are two
UK and
teams
Texas.
that could win the whole thing. I think there's no doubt. And they play twice between now and the end of the season. So 2 Iron Bowls. And then who knows what happens after that. They could, in theory, play 4 times. In theory.
Yeah.
SEC tournament and then NCAA tournament. That rarely happens, but it still could. So I'd say the winner will get 90 or more. I will say that the reunited Swedish trio, Victor Arvidsson, Matthias Ekholm, Philip Forsberg, will combine for at 2 or more points. They'll get 2 or more points between the three of them. Victor Arvidsson is more of a bit player, third line. Ekholm is a defenseman, but between the three of them, they will have at least 2 points. I will take Canada in the game. I think it's going to be a tremendous game to watch. I think the U.S. will come back and beat them in Boston for the title. That's my vision. But I think in Montreal, Canada has won 17 straight international games. I think they're going to be riding so high. I think they'll edge out the Americans, and I think there will be a rematch in the gold medal game. So give me Canada in that game. Is that 3 picks?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. And quickly, I will take Bama to hold serve and win the game against Auburn. I think Bama will win round 1 in Tuscaloosa.
So you're predicting
90 or more
Okay.
for the winner, regardless of who wins.
So you're hedging your bets here.
I am. No, I'm saying regardless of who wins, the
Okay.
winning team will have 90 or
Okay.
more. But
I'll make mine.
I'm predicting that Auburn will win. I'm sorry, Alabama will win the game.
Okay. Got it. Made it clear.
No, I was saying that the Kentucky and Tennessee game, Kentucky and Texas game is a 1-point spread. That's a 1-point spread.
David.
Go ahead.
All right,
your
I'll
picks.
make mine quickly. So I have the over for the Auburn Alabama game. I have trying to think. I have PJ Haggerty going plus 20 on Sunday against who are they playing? Wichita State. I have Vandy. I think Vandy will cover as well. And you know what? I think that will be under. I think that will also go the under. So those are my picks.
Okay. We'll see how we do next week. It's been a fabulous week here. Again, it's Valentine's Day all the love, just varying degrees of love depending on who you are. But we hope you have a wonderful weekend. I highly recommend you watch USA and Canada
Yes.
tomorrow night.
Yes.
Check it out.
You absolutely must make
Put it
time for
on your
that.
list.
Stillman and Company coming up next.
Be love on your people. Have a safe, wonderful, and blessed Friday. Happy Valentine's Day to all the lovers and everybody out there. Peace.